Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? This is Laura. Shake your head, yes, no? Okay. See a couple yeses. I think we have quorum. So, John, if you're here, you can go ahead and start the meeting. John, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me? I got a C? Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Burns, the chairman of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. And tonight I would like to call the meeting to order. That is the November 12th, 2020 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. At the beginning of each one of these meetings, we have to go through a series of motions to establish the need and effectiveness of having an online meeting rather than an in-person meeting because of the restrictions to everyone's health caused by the COVID pandemic. And so that's the first thing that I will do is go through these motions. Okay, so I have this. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask in advance for your patience. Number one, audibility of members' voices. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of the members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. Okay, so members, Michelle Aubrey, are you with us and can you hear us? Okay, hearing nothing, I'll pass it over Michelle and move on. Mr. Daniel.
Yes, John, I can hear you. I am at my home in Reston, and I believe I can see and hear everyone effectively.
Thank you. Ms. Huang.
Yes, this is Samantha. I am at Reston, my own house. I can hear everyone well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kalinsky.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burns. Steve Kalinsky here in my office in the city of Alexandria, and I can hear everybody fine.
Okay, member Elise Murray.
This is Elise Murray. I'm in my home in the town of Vienna, and I can hear everybody just fine.
Thank you. Susan Notkins, please. Okay, I will come back and ask again. Joe Plumpy, please.
Yes, this is Joe Plumpy in my residence in Fairfax Station, Virginia. Hear everybody loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Zellman, please.
This is Jason Zellman at my home in Burke, Virginia. I can hear everyone just fine.
And then, Laura, I do not see our new member on this list that I have.
He's here, Mr. Mike McReynolds.
McReynolds, okay. Mr. McReynolds, can you hear and see us?
Yes, I can.
And
I'm
welcome.
I'm here at my home out in Oakton, Virginia.
Okay. Well, we're very happy to have you here. I would offer to shake your hand, virtually perhaps.
Exactly.
But welcome. Yeah. And we're glad to have your assistance in having a full board once again. It's been a number of years since we've had a full board, so I'm very grateful for your participation and look forward to working with you. So
Glad
thank
to be
you.
here.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the folks who didn't answer. Michelle Aubrey, are you here?
I do not see Michelle, Mr. Burns.
Okay, and Susan Notkin's not here?
I don't see her either, and you did not call on Ms. Orr.
And, oh, I jumped over. Yes, Ms. Orr, are you with us, please?
I am, and I'm in Venice, Florida. And I hear everybody very well. Yeah.
Okay, are you getting rained upon by the hurricane?
Today was sunshine.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, welcome. It's good that you can hear us and see us even from that distance. So, okay, at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chairman Daniel so that I may be heard to make the requisite motions. So.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Daniel, okay. I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 We need a second.
Aye.
Miss Murray, we do need a second. Thank you.
I second it.
Miss Murray is seconded, and again, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All
Okay.
right, all those opposed indicate by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Sorry, I went from parenting straight to this meeting.
Okay, motion number 2, quorum of the ARB members as determined by the roll call. There are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 members of the ARB present and therefore satisfy the ARB minimum quorum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
We have a motion on the floor, and a second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you. Motion number 3, need for an electronic meeting. Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish that the nature of the emergency, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform and available for access to the ARB county website, or through phone at 1-408-418-9388 with access code 173-501-1442. And this number was verified for the meeting tonight. It is so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay. Motion number 4. Need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures to assure continuity and government continue operations. Finally, it is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you. Motion number 5, public comments. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after the consent agenda items and after each action item, as is standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Here's your
Okay.
gavel back, John.
Thank you, sir. I have received the gavel. Laura, do you have anything to say about the WebEx software before we get started?
Just wanted to do a friendly reminder that this meeting is being recorded, and for all the attendees, you'll be in listen-only mode until your item comes up, and then staff will unmute you so you're able to speak and present your item. But other than that, there's also a chat and a Q&A feature if you have any specific questions or need to contact us during the meeting. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. We traditionally open these meetings with a reading of the statement of purpose and intent of Historic Overlay District, which is found within our authorizing ordinance. And I had asked Ms. Notkins if she would read that tonight. Unfortunately, she's not with us. And so I'm asking for a volunteer of someone who might read that for us tonight.
I'll read it, John.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem. All right. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public, and through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, and archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel, for stepping in and reading the statement of purpose and intent tonight. I appreciate that. Next item of business is approval of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, we have multiple seconds there. Okay. And then I will call the question. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. Laura, are there guests that you want to introduce to us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Burns. We do have some, let's see if I can read some people. We do have some guests with us tonight. I think the only one that isn't related to one of our items is Mr. Gina Coyle with Housing and Community Development. I think they have a new name, but I'm sorry. But she's with us tonight and just listening in to the conversation on the W13 and W15 workhouse buildings.
Okay.
But other than, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Welcome.
And I think that's it.
And everybody else is here for business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay. There are no consent calendar items on the agenda tonight, so we'll move immediately to the items for action. And the first one is ARB 20-LOR-07, proposal for modifications to buildings W13 and W15 located at 9514 and 9517 Workhouse Way in Lorton, tax map 106-4, lot 0058. So proposal is located within the workhouse section of the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area. And we've seen this one before and a workshop item. And I understand Ms. Jenny Alvarez of Samaha Associates is going to present for us tonight.
That's right. Thank you so much. And I'm going to try and share my screen now. You just bear with me for a moment.
Jenny, this is Laura. Is there anyone else that I need to make a panelist? Kathleen Morgan or Norton Land LLC, are they with you?
I believe that they may be as guests, but Eileen would be joining us.
Yes, she's able to talk if she needs to. But just let me know if we need to promote you and we weren't able to.
I think that I may be having some issue with the
Laura, you're muted.
Yes, thank you. I realize that. Thank you, Nicole. Let me see if I can re-give you the presenting. Okay, Jenny, you should have it now. And then if you can't, we can pull up your PowerPoint as well. Jenny, are you still there? Let's see. Jenny, are you still there? Ms. Alvarez? Can't hear you if you're trying to speak to us. I feel like I'm conducting a seance. Please speak to us from the beyond.
From afar and beyond.
Yes.
Hopefully she's not in the underside.
Yeah, in the
Laura,
deep dark.
so as you
Yes.
said, you guys could display this, right? If
Yes.
they can.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Let us try to display it, but I'm worried I lost all audio with her now.
Okay.
So let's see. Nicole, do you have it up or do you want me to pull it
Yeah,
up?
is it just the application?
Yeah.
Package?
It's just
Yeah. Yeah, I have it.
Let me give you the
Yeah. Both Laura and I have gotten knocked off and had our things freeze already, so I'm not sure if WebEx is just giving us a hard time today or what.
Okay, Nicole. Let's see if we can do it.
Here you go.
Let's see. We can.
We just need probably this Jenny looks like she has. No, she's still on there.
Maybe she. No, she's gone.
She just left. She might have to log back on.
Yep. Okay, oh, now I got her. Let me make her panelist again.
Yeah. If you close the Q&A, I think we'll have a larger image to look at.
Oh,
I don't have the Q&A open at the moment.
Oh, was that only on my screen?
Yeah, you can
probably. If you minimize the Q&A, it might.
hello everyone. I'm sorry about that. Hope you can all see me now, or rather see my screen.
Let's see. We have Nicole. Would you like to? We can try giving it to you again. I think it crashed when we tried to give it to you. Let me see if I give it back to you. If that's okay. Hold on 1 second. And then let's see.
Yeah, John, if you hit the little X's, you can close it on your screen. I'll hide the Q&A.
Okay.
All right, Jenny, you should be able to share your screen now. Just hit the share content at the bottom. Perfect.
Oh, great. Okay, so you can see it now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
And the other thing that sometimes helps, since we seem to be having an issue, if you'd like to turn off your video, sometimes that helps helps WebEx a little bit. So, Jenny, did we lose you again? All right. Well, let's. Seems like we had the best luck with Nicole presenting.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and...
Yeah, and then just have Jenny speak for you.
Yeah.
Speak up for you. Okay. All right. Jenny, if you can hear us and you can come back, feel free to sign out and sign back in and I'll promote you again.
Oh, this really is like a seance.
I know, right? It's so
Welcome to the ARB, Mike.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. No, let's see. Okay. Where'd she go? Let's see if she came back. I don't know if she left yet. She might. Jenny, can you hear us? A second. Sorry about that. This is the first ARB meeting we've had since they upgraded the system. No, really. They moved us to a new platform, I guess, in WebEx, and I think we finally figured it out. And of course, now we are learning it all over again. Sorry, everybody. Thanks for your patience.
This is the new normal.
It looks like she bumped off again, so maybe she's trying to get back on now.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know if you noticed too, Laura, I just saw Michelle Aubrey's name under the attendee list, then it disappeared. So she might be having trouble too.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and I tried to promote her, and it wouldn't let me make her a panelist. So,
okay.
Yes, if you see her, feel free.
Yeah. I thought you had promoted her because her name disappeared, and then I went and looked, and I was like, oh no, she's not there.
Well, like I love this system. Okay, try one more thing. And we don't have our second applicant either because he's having trouble connecting as well. So,
So we've never discussed the etiquette. I seem to remember in college, you waited 15 minutes for a teaching assistant and maybe a half hour for a full professor. But what's the etiquette in this situation? I know I'm more than willing to be patient, but at some point, and you said Mr. DeLuca's not ready either?
Mr. DeLuca is having trouble with the password and email, so I'm working. That's who called me in the background. But yeah, I'm working with him to get him connected. But I was saying, go ahead.
Sorry, it looks like Jenny might be in the attendee list again.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Let's try it again.
Okay, let's try again. Jenny, are you there?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. Okay.
So sorry.
We're gonna. No, it's okay. We're gonna keep Nicole. Nicole's gonna run the presentation for you, if that's okay. And then, if you just want to go ahead and present over it, does that work?
Sure, whatever works.
Okay.
That'd be fine. And I'll just let you know when to go on to the next page, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you. Okay. Well, glad that we're finally past all those issues. I'm sorry about that, but I really like to thank you for the time and for giving us this opportunity to present tonight. This project that is very exciting and dear to us. We're presenting on behalf of Fairfax County's Department of Public Works and Environmental Services from the Building Design and Construction Division. As Laura mentioned, we have Eileen Gasteiger as the project manager for the county, and I'm Jenny Alvarez, the architect with Samaha Associates. Now, the workhouse campus buildings 13 and 15, also as Laura mentioned, were previously presented to the board back in July as a workshop item. And now we are submitting them for approval as 3 separate action items. I hope that it is all right for me to go ahead and present all the project for these 3 items. But there are 3 separate applications that were submitted. The first part of the project would be for the buildings and the code upgrades for buildings 13, 15 to make these warm lit shell buildings. The second is for the site improvements, including the new plaza and the repaving of Workhouse Way. And the third is for the trail improvements along Ox Road. If you would please go on to the next page. Thank you. So in this view, we can see the historic district, just a little bit of historical background. The Lorton Workhouse campus is part of the DC Workhouse and Reformatory Historic District. Specifically, buildings 13 and 15 sit on the west end of the site. On the right image, as you can see, the workhouse campus has the Ox Road on the west side, and the 2 buildings sit just next to the road as a gateway, if you will, to the main campus courtyard. Next, please. And in these historical photo records, again, just a little bit of background history, we show some of the transition of the site over the years, and specifically the role of the landscape on the site as it relates to buildings 13 and 15, as you mentioned, creating that sort of gateway into the courtyard. They certainly had a presence as the entry and the main door, if you will, to the campus. And we're trying to recreate that with what you'll see next in the site improvements. And toward the bottom of the page there, you'll see 2 images of some of the historic structures that are found elsewhere on the district. I believe it's in the other site north of this Lorton Workhouse. These are used as our inspiration for some of the hardscape improvements that you will see later on. Thank you. Now, here's some of the photos for the existing site. There on the left, top left corner, you'll see building 15, and the following one is 13. And they're sitting across this open lawn with some gentle slopes starting from Ox Road that you see on the background there toward Workhouse Way, which you see on the bottom right corner. And further into the courtyard space, you can see the rest of the campus where some of the buildings are currently being occupied by the Workhouse Arts Foundation. And there's some artwork installed in the main courtyard as well, as you can see the love sign there. Next, please. So here we have a view of building 13. It has a canopy with very colonial style, very simple gable end type roof with dormers. And of course, you cannot see the windows right now. They're being boarded for security purposes and to maintain the building. But we have double hung windows. And that door that you see there is from a later addition to the building, not historically appropriate, but that will be some of the work that we'll be doing to restore these to a more historically appropriate aesthetic. Next, please. Another, it's showing some of the photos of Building 13 in its current state. On the right lower corner, you see the west entry facing Ox Road. Next, please. And here's Building 15. Again, they're both very similar buildings. Both have the same canopy extension facing the courtyard. And you see the west entry there on the right, top right corner. We'll be trying to match that at Building 13. It says it is a ADA accessible entry. And it keeps with the historical character and the overall aesthetic. You can also see the exterior staircase that is currently located on the east side of the building along Workhouse Way. You'll see that a little better in the next sheet, please. Thank you. So here's a view of the exterior stair and the entry to Building 15. That one is a more historically appropriate entry with the transom fan window. And again, we'll be trying to match that in Building 13. And that is the existing conditions. If you will please, on the next page, we'll talk about the floor plans. And what we're trying to do with these buildings is make them viable for a future tenant to lease the space. It'll be a one-lit shell. And we're basically removing non-structural interior partitions to open up the space. We'll be redoing finishes in kind, cleaning and restoring any windows, of course, making the building envelope more weatherproof. And the current stairways are a little narrow for code, so we'll be replacing those in kind, again, to match the historical features. And they will just be wider to meet code. The front entry there that you see on the left bottom corner, that will be punched out to create a proper opening for the entry to be the historically correct doorway with skylights and the transom fan window. On the second floor, there aren't many partitions as of now. It's basically the shell of the building. We're going to be cleaning it and getting the finishes to be ready for any tenant fit up. Next, please. On Building 15, we have, oh, my bad. This is the new plans for Building 13. As I mentioned, we're basically taking out existing non-structural partitions to make some spaces for service uses for new utilities. And there you'll see the new wider staircase. There's not much else to the interiors of the building. Next, please. And this is Building 15. It's a similar scenario. It did have currently some partitions from when it was being used for the Workhouse Arts Foundation. I previously had some offices there. There was some structural damage, so part of the work here will be to repair and reinforce the structure. Next, please. And this is a new plan for building 15 again. Just some lateral reinforcement with some shear walls, the wider stair, and utility spaces. Next, please. These are the exterior elevations, and as you can see from what we were showing in the existing photos, we're really not changing the buildings in any way or adding or demoing any part of it other than restoring the windows, fixing them to be weather tight. We're proposing to install storm windows to protect them and make this building a lot more energy efficient as well. All the repairs will be done in kind. All the paint and the brick will be, of course, to match the existing. The only new items really would be the additional exterior lighting, which you can see on the top left corner, and it will be in kind again to match existing fixtures that are found on building 15. If you could please go to the next one. It's building 15, again, very similar. The only changes we're doing are switching out the entry doors to make them more historically appropriate and repairing the windows, paint, stairs, trim, and any minor repairs that are necessary to the roof.
I think that was still 13, right? You were talking about 15?
This is 15 now.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're both very similar. You can see.
Okay, but my recollection is 15 had a standing seam roof. That's why I was asking.
Both of them. They're basically mirror images of each other, and the only differences are that entry on 13, which had a small addition a few decades back. As part of the future tenant fit outs, there's a possibility that a small restaurant use could go into one of these. And if that were the case, we may need to have a small exhaust fan installed in one of these. And again, we're not showing that as a sure thing because it may just be a business use, or it could be possibly a microbrewery as a permitted use for this building. It has already been approved. So one of the proffer changes to this, but we just wanted to mention that as a possibility. Of course, we would expect them to make it match the exterior brick color if that were the case. Next, please. And this is just some information on the door changes that we'll be making to the exterior. These match the historical precedent and the existing, or rather the original building elevations. Next, please. I'd like to focus a little bit on the site. As I mentioned earlier, we have buildings 13 and 15 as sort of this gateway into the main campus. It's facing the courtyard that you see on the lower end of the street below there, across Workhouse Way. And in between the two buildings, we have this very open, expansive lawn running along Ox Road and the multi-purpose trail. And we'd really like to do something very exciting here to attract visitors, to activate the space, and make this truly a destination. If you could please go to the next page. We're also looking at the whole extent of this lot as it goes to the intersection with Lorton Road or Workhouse Way on the north end over there on the right side of the page. We'll be, as I mentioned earlier, doing some improvements to the trail as well as the signage for the corners, which you'll see later on. Next, please. Here you see the two buildings situated on either side of the new plaza with the site connections to the multipurpose trail. And the limits of disturbance are limited to the building courtyard space and the trail. We're really trying not to disturb anything else like the exterior lots or any of the other buildings. Workhouse Way will be repaved, as you see there, just east of the two buildings. Next, please. And this is just a view of the small dumpster enclosure that would be placed on the two lots for each building. And I believe this is following with the precedent over at the Liberty Complex, which is also located in this historic district. Next, please. Now, since most of the building repairs will be in kind and there are really no additions in this project, a lot of the material focus is for the site changes and the hardscape. And here you see some of those images of the materials that we're planning to use for the different sections of the plaza. As you can see, the boardwalk will be laid with precast concrete planks called the Permatrack system. There are some pillars that relate to the historical photographs that you saw earlier for the small gateway path, and these will be done using a brick that matches the color in kind to match the buildings as close as possible. The Workhouse Way will be paved with these subtle patterns in these pavers that you see on the second column. Small combination of gray, reds, and tans. And the goal of this would be to make the whole campus feel more connected and more cohesive and more historically appropriate to bring the pedestrians across from the plaza side to the main courtyard side and vice versa. We're also going to have small raised walks on either end of that intervention to make it a little safer for pedestrian traffic. Next. So here we have a closer view of the plaza site. Again, we have the multi-purpose trail up on the top side of the page, which is your west side, running along Ox Road. And the two paths are crossing the plaza to connect to the rest of the campus. And Workhouse Way is shown there at the bottom with a new paving pattern to enhance the site. There are two seating areas on either end of the plaza, and new ADA compliant pathways are going to connect to the parking lots and to the buildings. Next, please. Oh, if you would just, oh, okay. Yeah, there are these small interventions, as I mentioned earlier, at the intersections, at the ends of the lots, at the corner of Ox Road and Workhouse Way, on the north and south. And there will be a sign at each one of these locations. There are some new furnishings being installed, like benches and informational and historical signage. I forgot to mention that photo earlier, but we have an example of some of the existing signs that are on site. These will be used for future signage as well, that style. Next, please. Okay, so here's an overview of the landscaping that we're envisioning for the site. We would love to have some very welcoming shade trees that will invite the visitors to come in and spend time and relax and gather in this space while people driving along Ox Road will be able to see into the campus, be interested with all the activity. There are some minor interventions of flowering areas, and the rest is more like native vegetation, bushes, and excuse me, native grasses. And the existing sidewalk there in between the two canopies, that's going to remain. Next, please. And here's some of the samples of the different plantings that we're going to use. Next, please. Just to give you a feel for what we're trying to do with the slope across the site. As you can see on the second image there, Ox Road and the multi-purpose trail are on the left, and the slope gently goes downwards to create a small bioswale retention area for the landscape to work with the site and for us to improve the quality of stormwater drainage. And then it ties into Workhouse Way as it leads you into the main campus courtyard. The small little pillars that you see there are the small columns that are flanking the two sidewalks that tie from the trail to the main campus. And at the bottom image there, you'll see the small gateways that you'll see right off of the trail. Next, please. So here we have a rendered overview of the site with the site improvements, the Workhouse Way that you see toward the top. Ox Road is toward the bottom right corner of that first image. And what I think is important here, of course, is preserving the historical nature of the site. And one thing that was brought up to us in the first presentation was the importance of the view shed and how it is critical to maintain that view into the workhouse, to not block that view with new structures or the trees. So we did cut back on the amount of trees that we had originally presented. We have brought down some of the height on some of these columns, and the result is what you see there on the bottom image. I think it's a very welcoming, very exciting view into the workhouse while still preserving that view shed in the spirit of the original setting. Next, please. And here we have a closer view of the Workhouse Way. Again, some landscaping transitioning between the different zones, between the plaza, the seating areas, and the two buildings, trying to activate the space, and the different materials are relating to the existing context, the prison aesthetic. The furnishings also are in keeping with the style and the simple nature. Some of them match some of the existing furnishings that are on site already. And I believe that is about it. Oh, yes, here we have, sorry, almost missed the signage here. If you will take a look at that last image there on the right, that is the intervention of the at the intersection of the lot with the trail. We are trying to enhance the visitor experience, not only as you're driving by or as a visitor parking into the workhouse way, but also as a pedestrian when you're coming in bicycle with your kids. There are some small areas for rest, and we like to place some of the historical educational signage along this path here with some enhanced landscape. We are maintaining a lot of the existing landscape, but we're just enhancing at these little accent spots. The signage is in keeping with the steel and very simple materials that are on site, and this will be submitted for a signage permit application as well. And I think at this point, if there are any questions, I would be glad to hear them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alvarez. I appreciate that. I lost my audio at some point during that, and then it eventually came back. So I'm afraid I missed a little bit of the presentation, primarily when you switch from buildings 13 and 15 to the proposed landscape modifications between the two buildings. These are three separate individual action items, and so probably when we go around and talk and ask for comments from members of the board, that we should do that individually rather than collectively. So is there any member of the public who's attending this meeting who would like to make a comment on this presentation?
I don't see anything in the chat, Mr. Burns, but I'll let you know if we do.
If you do, okay, fine. Then I'm going to go around and let me retrieve my crib sheet here and ask individual members of the board. Mr. McReynolds, what I do at this point is I poll each member of the board. You'll be last today simply because I added your name at the end of the list, but the way that we have been getting input from each member of the board to give. Okay, so let's start out. Ms. Aubrey, I understand you've been able to join us.
Yes, finally. After working on 2 different computers for half an hour, we managed to get it connected. I appreciate the presentation, and I did review the material, the PowerPoint beforehand. And I want to say also, I appreciate very much the reduced size so that I can actually get through the document without it freezing up on me. As far as the buildings, the proposed changes to the buildings, I have no comments. I think their plan is good, and go for it.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Mr. Daniel.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. I again appreciate the presentation. I think in general, I don't have many concerns about the buildings. Probably the largest question I had in looking at the sheets, because I was able to pick out the at least info on most of the replacement information, the slate and things like that, was my biggest concern is probably going to be any of the work done to the brick and ensuring that we actually have a proper mortar match. I know this says, in kind with mortar is always a challenge. So I kind of wanted to get some feedback on what have those efforts, how successful has that been so far of the other buildings? Does the workhouse have a mix down that actually does a good job matching this mix, or is every time a contractor shooting from the hip?
Well, I may have to pass it on to some of the other participants in regard to any work that's been done in the past on site. But for the workhouse buildings 13 and 15, we're certainly going to make sure to take a small sample for matching the mortar. I think that is really the best way to go about it, rather than trying to select from a batch.
Okay, that is probably my largest concern with building repair, because it's one of the most obvious when it's done poorly, and one of the, when it's done well, it's done so well you can barely tell. So I think that's probably my only concern. I think my recommendation is going to be that, obviously, as the county continues with this, that they take immediate time to allow any mock-ups to appropriately cure and actually set before they commit to something. Because if this is going to be a very prominent area, particularly with the landscaping proposals, we want to make sure any repairs like that are, done well, so that it isn't detracting from the building. I want people to know that they're historic, but I don't want them to know that way.
Of course, and we are calling for mock-ups in our specifications to be approved by the county before.
Okay, and I think that, to get to Ms. Aubrey's comment, I think because of how tough it was to manipulate the other PDF, I may have missed that. But I think hearing that, I'm happier to hear that now. And I've got other comments on the other sections, but I've got nothing else to add at this moment, Mr. Burns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Huang.
I don't have comment for the building.
Okay, Mr. Kalinsky.
I just want to echo what Mr. Daniel said about the masonry. Very, very important.
Okay, Ms. Murray.
I have nothing more to contribute.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Orr, please.
I just want to make sure that the LEDs used are warm enough, not that they're not that blue hue that is so cold. Hopefully that I didn't see anything spelled out specifically, but I would assume y'all are taking such good care to be historic and kind that those LEDs would be kind as well. And I just wanted to ask the rest of the group, is the cable rail, is that something that we have used in other places and that's okay? I just wanted to make sure for my own, I don't know. I haven't been on the committee long enough to answer that.
Thank you, and those are very good points. We'll certainly be careful about the color selection for the LED lighting. That's a very valid point. And not certain about any other nearby projects with the railing, but perhaps at the Liberty complex that was recently completed.
Okay. Yeah, my recollection is that you often use cable rail like that as a means of making the railing functional, but as transparent as possible. So you don't want to diminish the views deeper into the complex. So it seems reasonable to me, at least in this particular installation. But I welcome other comments from other members of the board if they have any. Okay, hearing none, I'll move on. Mr. Plumpy.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Burns, thank you. As being the landscape architect on the board, I do have several comments on the design. I guess I have one quick question. Was there, well, first of all, are we supposed to talk about that now or just building only?
Right now, we're talking about just 13 and 15, just the buildings.
I have no comments with the building, but I do echo people's concerns about the mortar, make sure that is correct. Also, the brickwork is as well, what Mr. Daniel said. The lighting itself, right now, existing-wise, it's metal halide. And let's just make sure that the Kelvin level matches it. My assumption is it's probably going to be between 3,000 and 4,000 K for that, so that it doesn't be too blue, as Mrs. Orr said, or too warm. It looks like high pressure sodium. So that's very important to do. And in fact, I highly recommend that you do have the light fixture, the light representative, show you what these lights are at night. Don't just look at it in the conference room. I think it's very important to go to the site, make a sample of the light fixture that you can light so you can make sure that's the right thing. So, and I did have one just overall arching question. This is the first time I've ever seen this improvements to the project, especially landscape wise. I may have not been here for a meeting for the work session on it. I'm assuming there was a work session. So is that Mr. Burns? Could you help me out here on that?
There was a work session on this. I remember it clearly not very well because I questioned the slate roof on both buildings. My recollection had been that one of them was a standing seam roof. So
Yeah,
obviously I'm not 100% accurate on that, but I suspect that was another building, not one of these two.
Okay. But again, I'm mixing it up for a little bit. I apologize. So I just wanted to make certain that my comments are appropriate if we want to go to the landscape. Was there a landscape workshop on this submission?
Yes, Mr. Burns, there was.
Yes.
Okay. So apparently I either had to recuse myself or was not present at that meeting because a little surprised. That's some things, but I'll be quiet. Wait till landscape.
Mr. Plumpy, I can email you the old landscape plan if you wanted to compare real quick.
Sure.
But the workshop was in July 2020. It was in July of this year.
I was not there, I believe, for that.
Yeah.
I may have recused myself, but I should have, I guess. So yes, if you could send it to my email, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Zellman.
I don't have any comments on the buildings. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McReynolds.
I don't really have any comments on the buildings except to say that it's really exciting to see these buildings getting upgraded and be returned to more useful, be made usable again. So really exciting about that. Otherwise, I have no comment.
Okay, thank you very much. My own comments echo what you've already heard. One is it's very important to match the brick and the mortar color, composition, and strength when you do mortar repairs on a historic building like this. And then several people have mentioned color temperature. And I would also suggest that one of the things that you should do, since this is part of a campus, is if there is a campus-wide color temperature for bulbs, that you simply match that so that each of these things are evenly lit with a similar color temperature to other fixtures that are found throughout the complex, just for consistency's sake.
Right.
Then, if there are no further comments or questions, is there someone who's willing to make a motion on this particular action item, which is ARB 20-LOR-07, proposal for modifications to buildings W13 and W15?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I am willing to make a motion.
Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve ARB 20-LOR-07 located at 9514 and 9517 Workhouse Way, tax map 106-4 10058 in the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area to perform repairs and code compliance upgrades to the buildings at W13 and W15 as submitted and presented at the November 12 ARB meeting. Subject to the following conditions: that the applicant ensure that the LED color is appropriate to what is consistent for the rest of the workhouse area, and I think that is the only condition I think that we were placing upon it. Upon review of these materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Klinsky, I believe that was you.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion and seconded? Please. I'm sorry. Does somebody have discussion? I think I'm hearing myself echoing. Okay, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 And all opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. So let's now move on to ARB 20-LOR-09, proposal for modifications to the landscaping and site W13 and W15. So is there any member of the public who would like to address the A or B in this particular issue?
Mr. Burns, I don't see anyone else.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I will go through again and ask members of the board if they will comment, please. Ms. Aubrey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burns. I do have a question, just for clarification purposes, that it looks like the platform that the decking is higher, and so all of the plants seem almost like they're going to be in a stormwater management area. Is that what that is really designed to do? To be an area where that's catching all of the runoff?
Yes, thank you. The permatrack system, it is an elevated decking system, and it is partly over the storm drainage filtration area, and that drainage comes out for the front, or if you will, toward Workhouse Way with the landscape, and that's a small bioswale area with the landscape in it. And if you could, I'm sorry, Laura, if you could please maybe show one of the other rendering sheets that has that image there. Thank you. You can see it there. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can see it there on the lower right-hand corner. We wanted to create a very special place, a very nice location for people to kind of enjoy the nature and have something different as a destination spot here. And since we are trying to redirect some of the stormwater runoff from the two roofs that leads into the courtyard, what we did is take it under and through into that center area. And currently there is an existing storm drain in the middle of the site. What kind of led to this in the beginning was that we needed to do something with that drain, and we thought, well, maybe it would be best if we just keep that system there, but just move it outward a little bit, and we're spanning over it. I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does. Thank you. My only concern is that it will become I'm going to refer to it as a mosquito magnet area. And that would concern me if we were creating a space that was designed to be collecting water. But if the water is going to sufficiently drain off, then I guess it might not be an issue.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of landscape that should not be like a pond per se. And there are two drains in this open area out front. Everything's being redirected to that spot in the front.
Ms. Alvarez, this is Laura Arsenault. Just want to let you know that Norton Land LLC, I promoted them to be a panelist. They let me know that they are the landscape architect, so
Yes.
they may be able to help answer some of the questions.
Yeah, appreciate it. Please.
Hi, Miss Aubrey. This is Mike Norton at Norton Land Design. I do want to speak to this for just for a quick minute. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. There is a box culvert that is actually existing out at the basically at the edge of the permatrack decking area right now, and the idea was to leave that in place. The stormwater for a project like this is typically drawn down within 24 hours of a storm event. There will be no water that would sit on the site for an extended period of time. It'd be more of a landscape amenity, if you will.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Mike.
Yeah, and my recollection from having gone out and walked this site is that, Laura, if you go to slide number 4 of the slide deck, you can see pictures of that the box culvert in the middle of the property, and it's a fairly surprisingly steep slope down to that point.
It's about 6 feet of grade change.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
It's right in the middle of the top picture. It's got a little fence around it to kind of keep people away from it. It's a pre-existing prominent feature on the site, and the new proposal is to just acknowledge it and work around it. So, okay, moving on, please. Mr. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I think I just want to understand what the third item is. Is the third item the interventions that we're talking about?
So the third item would be the hardscape improvements to the trail and the signage.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood how to properly manage my comments on these two.
Appreciate it.
So I really appreciate you guys coming back to us with some changes here. I do remember this one, and I remember lamenting that Mr. Plumpy was not here because I really did want his insight on it as our landscape architect. So I'm hoping he's going to give some interesting perspectives to you when his turn comes up. I, in general, don't have an objection to the proposed idea here because it's a difficult space to solve. From last time, the comments we gave you particularly focused on the fact that it looked like you were crowding out this opening with a lot of trees, in the sense that it was going to choke this to the point that view was going to be constrained. I don't personally have a problem with the design. One thing I think that might be valuable and I think is missing is maybe some interpretation, because I do think this does create an element in the layout of the workhouse that makes it difficult for someone to understand it. The rest of the area is pretty much exactly how it is with some minor improvements around it. But if you stand in this space when it's completed, it's definitely going to be different than the rest of the space. So I almost was picturing in that center location some kind of interpretive signage that actually conveyed the space as it was historically compared to what you are now. While you have a differentiation of materials and it obviously stands out as new, definitely I think for the average visitor, it's going to be something that's going to throw them off. And so that's something that I personally think would benefit the space, is some kind of interpretation by the county to explain you're standing in a spot that is not real in the sense of the rest of the workhouse area, but it actually gives you a good place to interpret the workhouse area, because standing from it, you actually get to see the entire workhouse in its glory. And so that's kind of the direction I'm going with it. I will defer to my betters from their perspectives from a landscape side of it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Huang, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have my video off, so you cannot see me knocking my head while you make a presentation. I see a lot of progress and there's a lot of thought put into, and I like it a lot, and I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And next we have Mr. Kalinsky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. To the applicant, thank you so much. This is I'm going to say, this is a very good response to the comments that we offered at the workshop. I did like what you had done before, but I think this is taking it a step in a real positive direction in terms of relating better to the overall site. I think you've kind of marked the entry with your or the arrival point with two arched signs, workhouse signs, and I think those are quite attractive and appropriate to this.
Thank you.
But you've contained the site, yet it still has the view shed through it, and the identity point. So I think very, very well done on that aspect, and you know, I do like what I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Ms. Murray.
I don't really have anything to contribute, but I'm really looking forward to what Mr. Plumpy has to say.
Okay. Ms. Orr, please.
Hi. Yeah, I was just curious. So is a bioretention a different name for a rain garden, or is that an entirely different animal? Because I know, like with rain gardens, certain plants, and I know that these guys have thought about this, Mr. Norton, thank you for being here. I'm just educating myself some, but so do different plants grow in bioretention areas different than rain gardens?
Bioretention is the simple answer is bioretention has an underdrain system.
Okay. Okay.
That's kind of the gist of it. I mean, different soils and things like that, building it up. But to simplify it, bioretention, what would happen is we're tying into the existing underdrain, the inlet that's there right now. So it'd be the same plant material.
Okay. So the plant material isn't important in this, like it is in a rain garden then?
I'm sorry. It is important. I didn't quite catch the whole thing. Okay.
All right. So those are very specific plants chosen for that very specific purpose there.
They just need infrequent inundation, if you will, is how they typically work. So you can kind of cross them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, from what people have been saying, I should have a little drum roll, but Mr. Plumpy? Are you on mute?
That guy, sorry about that. No, hey, listen, I appreciate the presentation and everything. I think it's, right now, I guess a little bit of history is our firm, Studio 39, worked on this project many moons ago when it was first started out as Lorton Arts Facility and then turned into Lorton Workhouse. So I'm very familiar with this property as well as with Liberty. We're working on Liberty right now for the developer and so forth. So I'm very attuned to how this project all started, almost 15 years ago, and if not longer. I guess my first takeaway is I have several concerns. I also have some accolades. I think it's great that we're using stormwater management in some capacity. Our firm itself does a lot of sustainable type design and so forth, similar to what is shown on this design. I apologize I was not there for the work sessions. I probably would have commented a lot more than what I would tonight. I know this is for an approval for 3 items. So perhaps as a thought, maybe after I do some discussions, maybe we come back to the second item here, the landscape, based upon maybe comments given. But I guess I do have some concerns. I guess I'd like to start, I guess if I could see the design that you presented today, if we go back to the sheet that is shows, I guess the two slides, one with the presentation that shows the illustrative plan that shows the planting and the paving design, as well as the cross sections. I know we maybe toggle back and forth. And I just wanted to understand a couple things here. Are you required to do stormwater management for your improvements? That's number one. And number two, if you were, I understand the easiest thing is we'll keep the inlet where it is existing wise and make it work by building things over top or around it. So is it my understanding that the raised deck platform is over the manhole structure that's there right now, the box culvert? Is that right?
Actually, we are shifting that existing structure toward the east a little bit. And
so right now, where would it resonate right now on the plan that's on the graphic? Or do you have a graphic that shows the relocation of it?
I believe you should be able to see it on, one moment, please. There's a drainage plan. It might be one of the last few sheets.
Got the perspective.
Page 33. Yeah, if you could please zoom in to that center area there.
Okay, I see the, oops.
Sorry, I'm working to get my tools back.
Right.
So I see you pushed it back towards the, to the vehicular roadway internally, correct? That's what you did?
Right. It's within the planting area
Yeah.
near the sidewalk.
Yes, I see. Then you have two different elements in front of building W15 and W13, low depressions, correct?
Yes, and they're very subtle.
Okay, no, I
Yeah.
understood. No, and are those treated as, and okay, so I understand everything. I just wanted to.
There you go.
I guess so. So this is a good drawing to talk from, because this shows the elevated walkway over some of the biofilter and so forth. Correct? It shows where we have the pre-treatment gravel diaphragm and so forth. Because right now, so 123 is high and it drains towards the prison. Understand that. Let me say this: is I live down the road here. I drive this probably every other day. I live 6 miles from here. I go to Occoquan quite a bit, or to the Giant store just down the road from here. So I know this extremely well. I guess I have a couple concerns. Is with some of the bioswale, the rain garden. Yes, they are very similar. Yes, you are correct. They have good drainage. Knowing that the drainage here does not perk in this area, did you do perk test before you did your location of this, meaning that the soils are perkable, but probably not. It's probably a hard pan rock clay in this area. I would that's my hedge on this. With that said, I'm thankful that you are putting the proper soil mix. I'm assuming it's going down 2 to 3 feet into the existing grade beyond your finish elevation.
Yeah.
One thing that we've noticed with these bioswales and so forth, yes, they fill up. Like we just had 3 inches of rain today. That there'll be water. Maybe you're right. Within 24 hours, it's supposed to discharge in. You know, I still have a very grave concern about having some of the bio system go underneath the boardwalk itself, because that'll always stay moist and kind of damp like, even though, and there won't be no planting there, or if there were to be very little planting, because it's going to be shaded out so much. There is plants that can handle shade, and I'm aware of that, like carrots and so forth. But my concern is that it is an elevated area. This is an area of high activity. There's going to be food and beverage served here. The trash will, I assume, would be collecting in these lower areas, and they always do. This is a bugaboo. That's our challenge to do these projects by this. My concern is it becoming a maintenance issue? And what does this look like at 4 seasons of the year, so to speak? I do have concerns about mosquito larvae farming here. It doesn't take much. Mosquitoes can also form, doesn't have to have standing water to form, but they can stand in where it's very moist and kept moist. Trust me, we've been there, done that with these designs. So, and the best thing to get mosquitoes out of the area is moving water versus stagnant water. This will not be stagnant, mentioned, because it's going to drain, but there'll be always a moist environment that mosquitoes like to do. That's one of my concerns. I'm all favor of native indigenous plants and adapted native plant material for these rain gardens, from the rain garden / bioswales. My concern is that we're channelizing water that is going to be, some of it may be underneath that deck. Sometimes it's not the low point, which is good. You have the outfall structure for this, the standpipe and so forth, that away by the roadway itself. I just wonder if, I guess the Lorton facility people would like to have some kind of usable spaces for this area. So therefore, that's why it says large, which is acceptable. The preservation view I question, because there's a low brick wall, then there's tables and chairs behind it, which is fine, but the low brick wall will hide your view while you're in the car. 90% of the people buy this as you drive your 4-foot eye level. So you will not see the central green anymore, in my opinion, especially with some of the plantings that have taller plantings, the rain garden type plantings. I think the cable rail is probably a good idea, so that it does have transparency of views. I think, in my humble opinion, it's a little too much for this entry. I think it's a little too busy. It's. I think simple would be better. You have a lot of things going on here, a lot of different materials. I have some concerns about the boardwalk itself. I assume it's a synthetic material. I caught, or is it precast planks or something like that?
Precast.
Yeah, precast planking, and there is nothing else like this on this area. I know it's, hey, is that design effort? Hey, it's a elevated area. Let's make it wood because it's like a boardwalk type feel. I'm wondering if a simpler material would be more beneficial, and I'm wondering if all the bioswale itself could be moved out from underneath the raised platform, so we don't have these areas where the plants start to peter out, as it would say, as it gets towards that area shaded, because it is on the north side of. Let me think here. Yes, it's on the north side. I'm sorry, it's on the east side of the boardwalk. So I think it'll peter out towards it gets there, and it's going to be maybe not as glamorous as you would like to see in your renderings. I think the overhead archways are fine, but I just feel that we have a lot going on here. The buildings are very simple, as you did a painstaking effort, and I really appreciate what you did on the buildings, making all the improvements go with it. I think if I can honestly say I'm not going to support this tonight. I will. That doesn't mean y'all can support it, but I don't have support for the current design as it is. I think it's simpler. I think it also could use less type of changes of building designs and everything. I think KISS is the old school. Excuse me. As the old adage is, keep it simple, so to speak. And I think there's a lot going on. I think even that middle drop-off area, we have those little parterres of paving, different colors and so forth. Hey, it's great to mix different things up, but I think as one walks, and it was very painfully that simplicity, uniformity, with some tweaks of irregularity are good, and that's what the prisons built. The prisoners built this. I think we're stepping away from it. I think simpler materials, more industrial type materials would go a longer ways. I think that's I could ramble on. I don't want to, because we got several other things to do. My suggestion would be is to perhaps, and I'll stick my neck out here, another workshop to go over these things and defer this part of it, and then perhaps this is a separate agreement altogether, landscape improvements. That's all I have to say for now.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Zellman.
I don't know if I can follow that. That was pretty good. So I don't have any comments. I think that was very thorough, and I appreciate it. And if Mr. Plumpy thinks we need to defer, then I'm going to defer to his judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zellman. Mr. McReynolds.
I don't really have any comments. I thought it was very nicely done, and I liked it. But I would defer to Mr. Plumpy's expertise. I'm definitely not a landscape person at all. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McReynolds. My own comments are not terribly dissimilar from Mr. Plumpy's, but I'd like to make a few observations. One is that this is a design that is clearly oriented to pedestrian access, pedestrian visibility, pedestrian scale, pedestrian speed, not zipping by at 50 miles an hour on Ox Road. Maybe people who are stopped at the light might look over and enjoy it at a more pedestrian scale. But it's very different from the way that Lorton is now experienced by people on Ox Road. This addresses the people who are on foot or on bicycles, who are making use of the trail and coming into the site from that perspective. And so it's a very different design. It's very distinct. It's meant to be perceived at a close range and not at high speed. I presume that the second part of the landscape presentation, that is improvements to Ox Road, edge of Ox Road itself, are the things that might be of more interest and catch the eye of motorists as opposed to pedestrians or users of the trail. And that might be perceived at higher speed and at be greater scale things. This is rather small and intimate. I do share some of Mr. Plumpy's concerns about the maintainability of this. A public space, you know, below a deck like that, I was just like, yeah, okay, you're going to see things drop. And then, you know, I think it's a reasonable concern for an arts foundation to not put themselves in a high maintenance situation. So that's something that I think it's a reasonable conversation to have. With regard to what plants are appropriate or not, and whether or not they may have existed elsewhere in the Lorton site, yeah, I don't have the expertise to address that issue. But this is the package that is before us. This is a presentation that I personally think is much improved from the one that we saw in July. And it makes use of an existing, I'll call it a feature, which is the drainage inlet in the middle of the site. And it makes use of the existing grade of the site. It doesn't radically change the site. And it simply is choosing to impose a more public space there where people might gather, enjoy, contemplate. And as Mr. Plumpy did point out, you turn around and look into the Work Arts Center, you can see what it was like historically, even though this may not be historically the same as it was appropriately. With regard to Mr. Daniels' comments about interpretation, there were several excellent aerial photos and period photographs in the presentation that could be put into waysides that would explain things. And I think that's a good suggestion to add some interpretive information about what Lorton was like historically, since this is clearly a new feature within the site. And the different plant materials, the different deck materials and such, clearly will differentiate this as a non-historic and new feature within the larger complex. Okay, having said that, everybody's now spoken their piece. Is someone interested and willing to make a motion on this particular action item?
Mr. Chairman, I actually have a question, I think, for the applicant that I'd like to ask. So I wanted to hear Mr. Plumpy talk because I obviously respect his perspective as a landscape architect. That's just something I don't have the same grasp of. So I kind of want to understand from the applicant, is there something that could be worked on with this that could come back to us with, and we could defer vote on this, or is the county in a position that they want us to go forward with a vote on this? Because while I am fine with the concept of what's being proposed here, I want it to be the best possible thing proposed here. I don't want it to just be, well, this looks like it works, and I don't know, 3 or 4 years down the line, when I'm looking at it going, well, gosh, if we had the chance to get one more swipe at this, we might have something far better.
I thank you, Mr. Nate. I appreciate the opportunity to comment further on this, and I do believe that there's a lot of comments from Mr. Plumpy that we could try and address. The maintenance issue was certainly something that we thought of early on in the process, and we have been in discussions with the county to make sure that this is something that will be maintained and that is something that they can agree to. In general, we tried to place all the plantings outside of the decking area. The slope that you see under the decking really is more for the drainage of of the stormwater as it goes into the planting area. And really, it's more of a pre-treatment area. There are valid concerns, of course, with the possibility of mosquito growth, but there will be a couple of access panels that we're planning to incorporate into the planking to make sure that there's access for maintenance for the space below the deck. And regarding the wall itself, it is only about 18 inches high. And if we consider the slope from the street looking into the site, that's going to be even lower to eye view level. Just to address some of the concerns about the views being blocked by the wall. There are, of course, no impediments on these sides in the different seating areas on the sides of the plaza. And in general, the materials, we thought of what was on the site currently, which is mostly herringbone pattern brick pavers and concrete throughout. And that's really the aesthetic that we're trying to stick with. The steel railing is perhaps the most newest element that might stick out a little bit, but that's why we're using the cable railings to make that as transparent and as respectful as possible. And perhaps, Mike, if you're available still, and you can comment on the plantings and if there's anything that can be done about the maintenance to prevent any mosquito growth or anything to that effect. Laura, I don't know if you can talk at the moment.
Jenny, I'm still on the call. I mean, it was a lot to take in. I had a little bit of a hard time understanding some of the conversation from Mr. Pumpke. To address the stormwater is required for this project. Civil engineers, when we first looked at this, they wanted to do the small landscape infiltration between each of the workhouses and the gathering spaces, kind of in the low points that you have there. What happens is that creates unusable space for any future overspill, what have you, from events. We looked at this as there is an inlet, there is a low point already on the site. We were trying to work with what was already there right now. As you can see from the image that's on the screen right there, the project, the microbiome retention facility does have an underdrain system, so there will not be water sitting in this facility at all. As far as the sizing of it, we are at the limit of what is required for the county. If we had to move it, it would basically take up both spaces between each of the workhouses and the gathering spaces that we have right now. So we looked at a space that basically is unusable as it is right now. There is a storm drain. There's an inlet already existing that is the low point. So we tried to expand on that and use that as the stormwater facility. For the knee wall that's on the back of the boardwalk that you have right there, it is an 18-inch knee wall. It does serve to just transition to the concrete decking. It will not block the views to Ox Road, to the shared use path or anything along those lines. Otherwise, we're more than happy to discuss landscape plantings or anything along those lines. Absolutely open to further discussion on it.
Thank you, Mike. And in that spirit, I thought that there may be perhaps some concerns about the amount of plantings, and we have actually looked at some alternatives if that's something that may make Mr. Pumpke more comfortable with supporting this landscape action item. And I could share that with you, perhaps, Laura, if I could.
Yeah,
Well, I think with the point that so this is Mr. Daniel, the point that I was getting to is that I don't think we could solve that tonight.
Right.
However, that's why I was asking as an applicant, are you comfortable with deferring this item so that you could potentially perhaps even receive some more thorough comments from Mr. Plumpy to potentially respond to those in a way that we can come back with another submission? Or are you in a position where that is not the case? And I'm going to throw this in here too. I talked about interpretation and said, Mr. Burns, I know you don't have that on your plans. The only way you'll do it is if we make you do it, I suppose, because you're not going to do it for free. So I can't technically make you do it, but I feel like that's a loss there too. Just I was going to throw that in there, but I really do. I do want to make sure that we try to seek some reconciliation with Mr. Plumpy's comments because I do think they're important.
Okay, if I could add something here, Mr. Daniel, I think, is asking you, that is the two presenters tonight, do you have the authority to agree to a deferral on this? I don't see anyone representing the Lorton Art Foundation or the county actually here in the meeting, and so that's a basic question.
Sir, I'm here. I'm Eileen Gastager. I represent the Building Design Construction Division.
Yes, sorry.
You know, our preference is to understand where we stand tonight, but barring that, we could go for a deferral with the idea of perhaps looking at it quickly again.
Okay. Well, with that offer on the table in response to Mr. Daniel's comment, is there anyone who's willing to make a motion on this particular action item?
Mr. Burns, before we even say that, I think I want to ask Mr. Plumpy, are you, since you obviously have the most perspective on this, are you comfortable providing any additional input? Because I know there was questions about trying to understand your comments through this meeting we're working in. I don't want to, Joe, I don't want to sign you up for something you're not able to do.
Not at all. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I guess, first of all, and I appreciate your comments of the applicant about the plants. Plants is the minor thing. It's more than that. It's material selections. It's actually understanding the topography from how this is being perceived from 123, as Mr. Burns eloquently said, that it is a 55 to 65 mile an hour drive, and you're sitting in a position in your car at 4.5 feet. And right now there's inkbray hedge there right now. That is approximately the height of that wall, and it does obscure some of the view, honestly, of the area. And I think it's really what kind of view is this? Yes, there's a lot of people that walk, but not a ton of people, because there's no destination. Not a lot of people walk to Occoquan from Giant grocery store or Fairfax station, Fairfax. This is a biking area. It is a pass through. I see this as a place that is going to be for entertaining, for events. So basically, it's an event space with access, which I have no problem with that. I think I have some issues with how we're handling storm management, plant material, and material selection. So it's more than just one element. I think that's my comment. I think the interpretation thing is great, fantastic, for the types of plants, types of history of the site itself. So it's more than just plants, and it's more than just plants. That's all I'll say to that.
Okay, with that question answered, Mr. Daniel, since you brought this up, are you interested in making a motion, or should I ask if someone else is willing? We have two options here that appear to be tenable. One is an action item actually there's three. One is a motion to disapprove it. One is to approve it with lots of conditions, and the other is to simply defer it.
Well, I personally, John, am uncomfortable making a motion myself, because at this current point, I don't think I feel comfortable enough to approve it at this current moment. So, but I don't feel competent making a recommendation on what may need to be changed to frame that out. But Joe's convinced me enough at this moment that there needs to be at least a little bit more discussion on what's going on in here. In concept, am fine with what's being proposed, but I think it could be, I think that there's some input that could be given there and some changes.
Mr. Burns, I have a question. Is there, sure. Am I allowed a board member to have independent meeting with the designer and the applicant before work happens?
I believe that is appropriate as long as we don't have more than 2 members of the ARB.
Just
and oftentimes, like for instance, if somebody's doing a project in the Mount Vernon district, I'm more than willing to go and chat with them about it. And so I don't think that that's an unreasonable thing. Although I do, one of the little things I took a note about is that this is a project that you have worked on, and so that's but no longer work on, and so that's the consideration to take into account to make sure that you don't put yourself in a position of conflict.
No, and and thank you for bringing that up. Is you're right, we do not work on this property anymore. I just know a lot about it from when it first was visualized and so forth. And so I want to be a help, not a hindrance here. And I want to make sure that the client understands that. I think from a technical standpoint as well as from a usability standpoint of these areas. That's, I'm not, I want to be an advocate for what you're trying to do here. I just think it needs some refinement. That's what I'm kind of asking to do.
Okay, well then, that be the case, are you willing to make a motion?
A motion for denial or for deferral? Because I will not motion this for approval.
That's your choice. I'm asking what you would recommend our action be.
I don't have the action slip printed, but I'll just do, I don't have the application number at my fingertips, guys, so I apologize. So my feeling is all right, I'd like to make a motion, but I won't refer to any specifics for this. Mr. Burns, I'd like to make a motion that for the landscape improvements between buildings W15 and W13 at the Lorton Workhouse be deferred for another time with potential of a board member or board members work with the applicant and then come back either for another workshop or another hearing for approval.
Okay, if I may, Laura, let me try this. The motion a draft motion that he had sent out to us, I would say we will use that and simply in the 3.4 area where you can insert conditions, the condition would be what Mr. Plumpy just proposed. Does that make sense from keeping track of actions?
Yes, that'd be fine. I just want to state the case number is ARB 20-LOR-09 for the record.
Right. If you want, I will read into the record the formal motion, and then parenthetically, you can add Mr. Plumpy's insert in the middle. That work?
If you'd like, yes, for the record, go ahead and do that.
Okay. This is an ARB motion. Mr. Chairman. Okay, I move that the ARB recommend approval for ARB 20-LOR-09 located at 9514 and 9517 Workhouse Way, tax map 106-4 0058 in the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area for the proposal for the proposal for modifications to landscaping and modifications near buildings W13 and W15 as submitted and presented in number 12 ARB meeting, subject to the following conditions. And we would insert Mr. Plumpy's conditions. And then at the end, upon review of the materials, the proposal is as modified and subject condition is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Mr. Burns, did you go ahead?
obviously that would be Mr. Plumpy's motion, not so.
Yeah.
Could I point out that I think you should say recommend deferral instead of approval,
Exactly.
and drop the last paragraph completely because it's not relevant. Last sentence, upon review.
Okay, the presenter of the motion, I accept that. Mr. Plumpy, do you accept that?
Accepted. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Miss Murray. Perfect.
Okay. Well, Ms. Murray, then with that, those changes, would you second it?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion with the modifications proposed by Mr. Plumpy, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, and all opposed say nay. Okay, hearing none, the motion as presented by Mr. Plumpy is approved. Okay, the next action item tonight is...
Mr. Burns, if I could, this is Laura. I
Yes.
just want to make it clear that the motion is to defer and that we'll be working with Mr. Plumpy about coming back as a workshop or action item for the December meeting. Is that correct? I just want to make sure.
That is my understanding.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next one is ARB 20-LOR-10, proposal for modifications to the streetscape near W13 and W15. We know where it is. And this is, again, presented by Ms. Alvarez. And we have more slides to look at.
Do we? I thought we finished all the slides.
The presentation included some of those views of the trail improvements as well as the signage. I believe they are on page. It's the next page, I believe. One more. There we go. So there you can see the signage that would be going at the corners of the site at the intersections with Workhouse Road and Ox Road. And you can see also a little bit of the trail improvements would basically be resurfacing the small asphalt trail with brick pavers to match what's being done on the site as well.
Okay, my comment that there was more slides to see was based on the little slider at the right side there, which seems to indicate there's more slides to follow. But this is indeed the last slide. It says 27 to 34. So what's between 27 and 34? That's what I thought was next up.
There are some.
That's just details.
Yes, and there is a sheet there showing some of the furnishings and the benches that would be utilizing some of the bike racks that are being implemented throughout the trail. Earlier on in the presentation, there was an colored overall plan. Perhaps that might be best to look at. I believe it's sheet, let's see, 21, if I'm not mistaken.
There's 21.
That's not.
C27. Yep, there's a colored one too. That might be better to look at. No. Oh, there we go. That's the one.
So I'm sorry. This is Joe Plumpy speaking again. So the streetscape itself is just the trail area that is along 123 plus the termination points with the brick terminus points and then the brick paving. So everything behind the trail being planned south would not be part of this presentation or motion, correct?
Correct. And okay. There are some minor landscape interventions as well.
Sure. I don't. Is there a detailed landscape plan done for this, or just the rendering for the plantings along the trail along 123?
this is the planting plan. It might be a little bit difficult to read the symbols with the colors, but it's basically adding, well, if you will, Mike, if you're available to speak to some of the landscape improvements along the trail. We are keeping some of the existing trees.
Because most of the patterns pertain to the plaza area and so forth. It's just tough to distinguish what the plant list is based upon the drawing.
We treated this as one project, even though it's basically 3 reviews. So what you have is there's landscape elements. The planting is along the pathway itself. Right. So we don't have the 2 broken out. I apologize for that.
Okay, but those plants have been identified in a plant list. Is that what that? It's too small for me to see. I apologize for that.
That is correct. We do have it broken apart. Maybe, yeah. You would have to go through that.
Yeah, it'd be tough to.
You would need it in PDF to review it 100%. Probably not on this screen.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a shame. I'm sure it's good, but without proper knowledge,
it may be. I don't know.
But mostly it is a line of small bushes and small accents of flowering areas.
Isn't this the PDF that was given to us? So this was in the PDF, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's why I asked that question earlier, to try to differentiate the 2 of these, to make sure I understood what I was going to be commenting on. Just for that clarify, that's where that question came from.
Right. Could you go back to the slide, that slide, but so we can see the full screen?
You want me to zoom out?
Yeah, zoom out so we can see that whole drawing sheet. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so what we're talking about is plant materials along the trail itself at the edge of Ox Road, right?
I think what we're talking about is is from the property line to Ox Road. So the property line is the dark phantom line.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's between that and Ox Road. And
okay.
Yeah.
It's showing there at the outer corners and the lower 2 renderings that there is that brick paving out there? I mean, what is the little round thing? And
those are the interventions, I believe Miss Alvarez was talking about.
Yes,
that's correct. I believe Jenny had some different scaled drawings to show those. It had to do with the signage and a couple other things on there.
That's the rendering that we saw earlier with the signage.
Okay.
The small circular paved area.
Okay. And with one of the things that you showed a rendering of was a tombstone sign that listed the various activities within the workhouse. Where is that sign located?
It is on both of those corners, right by the circle interventions.
Okay, so that would be the thing that's meant to catch the motorist's eye.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
All
right.
With a couple of trees on the behind each sign and some of the landscape accents.
Right, and then this is a design question. I think I already know the answer. It's because of ease of access, but it appears as though that you have a formal entrance into the trash dumpster in each of those 2 parking lots. And I assume that's because the truck can go straight in and grab the stuff, dump it, and then back out. But it seems to give a lot of prominence to a very utilitarian feature in an otherwise very highly stylized environment. And I was just wondering, is that there for a particular reason? Is it access and such?
It is located there for best access, and we're trying not to modify the site further than necessary. And we did consider placing it outside of the lot on the grade there, but we thought it would be best to actually hide that from the road with the landscape that's there. Unfortunately, there's really not much we could do as you're coming into the lot to disguise that unless we create an actual drive for it, but it's certainly something we could consider.
Okay, well, that's just something that kind of struck me as an interesting hierarchy of a progression of space. It seems like you're going into something grand, and reality is it's the dumpster.
I think we'd all prefer not to have the dumpsters. What was happening?
That's a necessity of life. And if you're going to, one of these two buildings is going to have a restaurant in it, you're going to have a grease container and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not the civil on this. Jenny and I went round and round with the civil engineer several times, and what ends up happening is we actually have to add more impervious. It is actually the trash truck turnaround that was causing us so many problems. And so what happens is, although this is not ideal, a trash truck can pull straight in and back straight back out the workhouse. So that's where we are.
That's the solution. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's where we are right now.
Okay. All right. We might give some attention to the fenestration of that enclosure.
And there is an image of the intended enclosure, which is what I believe was used at the Liberty site.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay. So now we have a better understanding of what item 10 is, action item 3, but ARB 20-LOR-10. Is someone willing to make a motion on this particular action item?
Mr. Burns, this is Laura. I just want to note too that we need to go back and for the signage specifically, get some more comments from the sign permit review branch, because we didn't do that with the sign application part. So we can go ahead, and if we do want to approve it, I would say we would do that, but just have a condition to go back and make sure we review with the sign permit review. Sign permit review branch.
Okay, well, maybe then this one would be one that we might also defer, since we don't have concurrence from the county sign folks that the proposed designs are okay, and Mr. Plumpy has expressed some concern about not being able at small scale in a digital environment, being able to adequately study in advance the plant materials that are being proposed.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
I would also comment that we didn't actually comment on this one as you went around the room, unlike the others, I don't believe.
Good point. Excellent point. Absolutely correct. So should we do that, or?
And John, you didn't call for a hearing.
I know.
For testimony.
We messed everything up here. It's all just kind of run together. Okay, let me back up a bit. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the ARB on this particular application? Okay, hearing none, I will go around and get my list again. Ms. Aubrey, would you like to comment, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have found that it's somewhat difficult to distinguish what items are in item number 10 versus, what items are in item number 9. And it seems like, to me, if there's landscaping here, that maybe all the landscaping should be dealt with as one unit, and then all the hardscape, and which would be the paths and the roadway, in Workhouse Road and across, all the hardscape things be dealt with as a separate item from all the landscaping. But it seems kind of odd to look at the landscaping along the road of Ox Road while we're deferring looking at the landscaping that surround the plaza. So I would I would support the idea of deferring on this item.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Burns, can I respond to that? This is Laura, real quick.
Yes.
I just want, usually I do the approvals by what we're recommending approval for. So for the buildings, we were doing building permit approvals. So if we want to do a site plan approval for the rest of the area and combine it as one, that's fine. We had the streetscape came on a little bit later than the middle plaza area. So I think if we split it by that with Ms. Albert's suggestion, I think that'd be fine. I'm worried if we split the hardscape versus the softscape, we can only really approve or recommend approval for the site plan overall and not, approve one versus the other.
That's right. Thank you, Laura.
But I think it'd be a good point to maybe do one site plan approval for all of it, and then the building permit approval for the buildings.
Okay, well, we've already an approval for the building work. So the question is to deal with 09 and 10, the last two items. Okay, Mr. Daniel.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short and sweet since we're really dragging on this one. So I had the same concerns about the dumpster enclosure. I know it mentioned that this is something similar to what we've approved before, but given the location and prominence, I kind of hope we could find maybe a way to make it a little bit more. I recognize we can't make it very invisible, but I feel like in other portions of the Lorton site, we've pointed out that this untreated lumber does not necessarily invoke the attractiveness that we were hoping it would. So I'm kind of struggling on that point. I do like the signage that's out there, and I'd be interested to see what the final county statement is on it. I think it's fun. We've got to try to draw attention to this facility. I know that's always been a challenge for the Arts Center. I was curious about what the lighting was going to be for those. That was the one thing that I think I didn't quite understand looking at this. But otherwise, I defer to my other colleagues' comments on, I think this should just be rolled into that deferral for this next one since it ties landscape so closely.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Swan?
Mr. Chairman, I have no further comments.
Thank you. Mr. Kalinsky?
No further comments, thank you.
Ms. Murray?
I'm in the deferral camp, and I found this part of the presentation very confusing. There were references to the intersection of Ox Road and Workhouse Way. I don't think they intersect, do they? Oh, I know where they intersect, but that's not, okay, I know where they intersect, but that's not part of your plan, is it? And what on earth is an intervention? And I felt that some of the aspects of the plan in terms of sign were not, maybe I missed it. I did look at this in advance. I felt that I couldn't get I'm not an architect, but quote, an elevation view of some of the things you want to do. A lot of it was at an angle in your drawings and wasn't completely straightforward. So I would ask for drawings that make a better effort to differentiate what you're doing where. Thank you. And where does it, are you talking about the intersection at the, close to the property line?
Yeah, if I may, you follow the Ox Road along the top of the page and look at the two ends there. Thank you. That's a good overall there. Workhouse Road on the right side of the page intersects with that corner. And on the south end, you have Workhouse Way. And there is a straight elevation view of the signage as well as the rendering side by side.
I'm sorry, but this is just too tiny for me to see.
Well, it is a large site and we wanted to show where it is located in relationship to the buildings. However, there is a blow up of that on the following sheet, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and are you asking for, is that the things you show on your plan there, that's part of what you're asking for approval for?
Yes, the two intersection corners with the paving, the signage, as well as the accent paving in the middle of the trail right in front of the plaza.
Okay,
all the landscaping that's along this trail as well. So everything beyond, as Mike had explained it earlier, everything that's beyond the property line toward Ox Road is the trail, what we're considering the trail improvements and signage.
Well, at that point, I couldn't discern the property line on my drawing, on the drawing that the size it was in. Okay, I think what you're asking for needs to be more clearly set forth. That's all I'm saying.
We could perhaps separate these items for a package of its own, if that would clarify things. And we could do this as when we do this, the FUR presentation.
Well, for me, it's not so much that needing to separate it out, but that the drawing that the package you sent us is too tight, too compacted. And not being an architect, I have had trouble trying to figure out exactly what you're asking when. And if you could take that in mind for your next submission, that would be terrific.
Hi, Jenny, this is Laura. I think that the more this discussion goes on, that the whole thing should be submitted as one site plan. And then we're going to have to do, so we'll have one approval for the building permits, and then we'll have one whole site plan review. And then my question, I just thought of this, is that property is not owned by you, is it owned by VDOT, that right of way? And have they had an opportunity to review it?
Correct.
We have had a discussion with the civil engineer and zoning, and that is being referred to them.
Okay. Yeah, we always have with the ARB, we always have a chicken and the egg of if we approve something, and then if, VDOT doesn't like it, then they come back and change it. And, we have with that. So then the third approval would be for more details on the signage. So those are the three approvals I think we have moving forward. So we'll have the building permit for the buildings. We'll have a site plan for the entire area, I think would be best because it really blends into each other. And then I think the third one would be for the sign plan, or the building permits for the two signs.
Okay.
I appreciate this, guys.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Murray. And also thank you for setting me on the right path procedurally. I appreciate that. One thing I have a question about, this drawing that's now up on the screen, it's a rendering that shows the full length of the proposed changes, is very different than the rendering we had on the screen a few minutes ago. There were some large canopy trees and such that I don't see on this drawing. So which is the current proposal?
Good point.
And this plan is simply an overall showing the hardscape, but then in the planting plan, those trees are correct, and they're not large canopy trees. I believe they're more of a small flowering type.
Well, could you go to the? I'm thinking that there's. I think I remember seeing 4 large canopy trees just outside the path that leads into the to the deck. That was in your color rendering.
Yeah, they're actually
There you go.
Yeah.
Those aren't on the line drawing. They're in the rendering, but on the line drawing. So which is what you're proposing? This or the line drawing?
Okay, just to make sure I'm understanding, you're talking about the large shade trees here in the middle of the area?
Right. There's 4 basically on either side of that, and they're labeled GT.
As Vidicia tricanthus, they're going to be thornless honey locust trees. And then there's also some trees that are along the right parking lot. Those are elm trees, I believe. I have a PDF I have a rendering open up on my home computer that I can see this. Yeah, homestead elms. So I think you got to marry the two plans together. And but Mr. Burns, I'll wait till you get to my comment. I have some comments to help them out.
Okay, all right. So Ms. Orr, let's go to you first, please.
The interventions to me seem, I ride and walk, and I'm not going to stop and sit on a bench there when I see that there's action going on down the middle. I mean, I may stop and read a sign, but I'm not going to sit at a bench. So I'm kind of curious about the interest, why I'm interested in sitting there when really the action is here between these two buildings. Just a thought. And I'm also wondering about the two benches that are out. Are somebody, I mean, like, is that a bus stop out? I mean, why would I sit and look on Ox Road when I want to really sit and, or I want to be inside? I'm just curious as to what's going on out here that I'm sit on a bench and watch go by. I don't know. I don't know this area, and I'm just intrigued. Okay, I don't know.
May I just want to mention that that is kind of the point of this accent area in the middle of the trail, to just get your attention at first. You may be a bicyclist or a runner just jogging along, and you might want to take a break. And then at that point, you start to notice that there is something going on in the site. Perhaps Mr. Blump might know more about the different activities that go on here with the art center on a regular basis. It can be quite active, and we just want to get people along this trail and along the road to be more interested in that sense. And that's really all we're trying to do, to kind of announce your arrival to the site.
Okay, and I might point out that there is an award-winning building across the way, the Fairfax Water Complex. So you would at least be looking towards that.
There you go. Good answer.
Okay, Mr. Plumpy.
Sure thing. Really, these are all real good comments, and please, applicant, we're not ganging up on you, but I think this project's very close to our hearts, as you could probably imagine, because usually we get additions to houses that should not even be in our historical district. So this is one you're going to see a lot of scrutiny on. So please don't take anything to heart here. I think Ms. Hoare hit the nail on the head here. Again, I live here, I drive by here. This is more of a vehicular-oriented type facility. That's why they have a large parking lot there. So to go here and you drive here, you very rarely you see people walk here from the neighborhoods, because the neighborhoods, this is rural subdivisions out here. Okay, 5-acre lots, 2-acre lots, half-acre lots. It's not an urban site. So, but once you get in, then the magic happens. I think really the most important thing here is the visual context from the perimeter inward that will attract people in. I really think the money, and again, from a design standpoint, I think some of the design itself could be, some of the things you're doing out on the outside should be pushed on the inside. Like, I don't see any bicycle parking or anything like that on this thing. If you mentioned bikes, there's a bike path, bingo, do that. Do something that would encourage people to wheel my bike in here and so forth. I guess the thing is the bench is looking at 123. If I drive my 62 Studebaker, perhaps that's the reason why I just sit on that bench. But I don't think that. I think stuff like that is inward oriented. A very good point that Mrs. Murray, and I was chopping up the bits to say this. VDOT, I remember when VDOT is very cautious on this with types of plant material, as well as with hardscape improvements, because they have to maintain this, or the county maintains, because this is VDOT road right of way, which is maintained by the county or VDOT. I'm not certain which the trails maintain. I know that we worked in projects that in the VDOT road right of way, that brick paving is very tough to get approved. It's going to have to be mortar set. It's not an expensive detail, because they want things to last forever. The plantings have to be careful for side distances and so forth. So I think you got that under control. But I remember, I don't know if that person's still there with their landscape architect that review all the landscape plans for VDOT or 123. This is a very important highway that they did back approximately 20 years ago when they widened it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes divided. So it is imperative that you have conversations with VDOT before you come to us, so that you know what you're doing can be done. Because I hate to ask to approve something, you can't do it, and you come back again, 2-3 times because we approved something without maybe all your punch list type things done with VDOT. So I think it's, you said your civil engineer is doing that, but the civil needs to speak up a little louder, I think, in this presentation to say, yes, VDOT has 100% approved this, no problem, but they will have issues with benches that prints become things that people can hit, when a car leaves a roadway. These are standing objects. So that's why signs are breakaway, are these details for breakaway type things. Those little round things, and I kind of like them at the very end there by the handicap accessibility ramps. But those are things you got to be cautious of, because all that's in the VDOT road right away. It appears from your property line. There was one drawing that showed the property line pretty clear. And I think those are things that we really got to be cautious of. So actually, it's on your render. If you go to your color rendering of this, down below there, at least on the landscape area. So that's the road right away, is your property line. So all that's in VDOT. And dude, if you can get that approved, God bless you. Especially that sign itself, because you're going to get it has to be a breakaway sign. And site distance issues. And so enough said about VDOT. So really check that box, please, because look, I'm on your side. Let's make that happen. The signs yourself, I agree with Miss Murray. We need to go ahead and get some more details. Is it internally lit? Is it lit? Show us a night rendering of what the signs look like, because it's very dark sky out there, and that's what people like. But then the signs themselves will do the pop that will speak volumes for this establishment, for the Morton workhouse. I think the planting, it'd be great the next time you come back and show a planting plan. I only have this legend. There's a lot of different patterns and so forth. If you could just do plant labels with leaders on it, would go a long ways. I know you already have plant imagery, which I appreciate. The thing I'm going to look at is this 4-season planting? Most of it is perennial, so I question what it would look like for 5 months out of the year to even 6 months out of the year when it's starting to come up. I think those are some things. I think you need some more permanency on the landscape. My personal gut reaction is to this. And see if this is a bike trail. Make sure that you plant selective, not droop over into the bike trail that becomes a nuisance for bikers. That'll narrow the path for the biking. People drive their bikes very fast here, as well as they ride on 123 itself. So again, the takeaway is identify the plants a little bit better, get the exhibits a little bit easier to read, as everyone said, and really to highlight the areas, which is, draw a line around a box of what am I approving for one particular motion, even if that's like a legend sheet or something, like a key sheet. Get with VDOT if you could, at least get a gut feel reaction. Hey, what you're doing is no problem, or whatever, unless you do it at risk, which I would not advise. Then also the lighting of the signs themselves and the signage details. That's my takeaway. But I look, I'm supporting what you're trying to do here. I think we just need a little bit more information, but make sure that it's going to be enough. Maybe we don't need to do so much. Maybe the planting is a little excessive from standpoint of, again, it's maintenance. Is the Lorton Workhouse willing to maintain this? Or better yet, is the county willing to maintain it? Because this is a county facility, trail and so forth. So those are agreements that you got to really look at a little bit closer, especially the paving thing and so forth. So that's all. Sorry, that's enough. You're muted, John.
Thank you, Mr. Fluffy. Mr. Zellman.
I think I agree with the consensus that it's probably time to defer this, and I think based on Laura's recommendation, doing a site plan for everything and considering it at one time at a future meeting is the way to go at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Zellman. Mr. McReynolds.
Yeah, I'd agree with the consensus that we should defer this and look at it again after the the VDOT is evaluated, make sure that they're good with it as well.
Thank you, Mr. McReynolds. My own comments are, I agree with the general consensus that a unified presentation would be preferable, and that we should defer this one as we deferred the immediate previous one. So is someone willing to make a motion on this particular action item?
Mr. Burns, I'm willing to make a motion if the applicant is amenable to deferral.
This is Eileen Gastiger. We're amenable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your understanding. Mr. Daniel.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I Move that the ARB recommend deferral for ARB 20-LOR-10 located at 9514 and 9517 Workhouse Way, tax map 106-4, double paren 10058 in the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse area for the proposal of street modifications along Ox Road and near buildings W13 and W15. As submitted and presented at the November 12 ARB meeting, the ARB has decided to recommend deferral so that the applicant may combine this proposal with the landscaping proposal to make it one unified site plan, as well as to work with one or more ARB members to address some of the comments and concerns presented.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I have a second. Was that Mr. Zellman?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zellman. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion to defer item ARB 20-LOR-10, please say aye.
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 And all opposed, say nay. Hearing no negative votes, the motion carries. Ms. Alvarez and your two colleagues, thank you for your patience, and I hope you took lots of notes. That will make coming back easier, and I look forward to seeing you in a future meeting, either as an action item or as a workshop. And remember, several members of the board need to volunteer to help out and give further feedback before they return to us next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next action item is ARB 20-LFK-01, proposal for new construction of an addition at the Langley Ordinary, located at 1101 Chainbridge Road, McLean, tax map number 0223010063A, located in the Langley Historic Overlay District. Mr. DeLuca, are you with us tonight? And don't forget to unmute.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, sir. How are you doing, Chairman? It's showing I'm not muted.
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks, guys.
I will mute myself now.
Laura, am I supposed to speak? I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, Mr. DeLuca, this is Mr. Daniel. Yes, the floor is yours. So feel free to regale us as to where we are since the last time we saw you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I've sent updated plans. There was some concern previously. We were, I don't know how to call it. I wouldn't call it approved. We were accepted in concept, except for a lot more additional details, which I believe we've addressed in the most recent submission. The most important items that have come up recently were what pieces of the main ordinary would be in conflict for demolition, and there really wouldn't be any. It would all be affected to where the architectural hyphen exists. There is two dormers that appear on the sheet where the architectural hyphen is extended, and those two windows would close just so I don't end up with a valley or a water issue in between that, but they're all hidden from all, I would say all three sides of the ordinary. The only place you would really see it is if you climbed up onto the roof and looked at the architectural hyphen, the previously approved architectural hyphen attachment. As you can see with the architectural hyphen, it would be
Mr. DeLuca, sorry, this is Laura. Did you have a presentation that you wanted to share with us, or are you just?
Oh no, it was the set of plans, Laura, that I already.
Okay. That you submitted. Okay.
Is it possible to put them up onto the board?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can pull them up. That's why I was asking. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I just want to make sure to give us some context. Visuals always help. So.
Sorry, board.
Nicole, can you pull that up, or
Yeah, once you make me.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Mr. DeLuca's the host right now.
Yes, minor details. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Okay, sorry, Mr. DeLuca, to interrupt.
No, ma'am, not at all. Thank you so much. So if we just did an overview, great. Thank you, Nicole. Great. So this represents where we're actually looking down. And Nicole, can you scroll down? Great. A little further, I'm sorry. There we go. So as you can see, the previously approved hyphen is where it says the new enlarged room. Right where the two posts sit is the existing architectural hyphen that was previously approved. That would extend to avoid a valley in between the ordinary's main building and the architectural hyphen, or the extended architectural hyphen. If you scroll down a little further, Nicole.
I will in a second. My screen has disappeared, even though I'm obviously still on the call, but I don't have a call on, or I have nothing on my screen.
Oh, okay. It's on
Give
our,
me a sec.
on our screen.
Yeah, I can't scroll anything because I don't have anything. It just disappeared. I don't know where it went.
Okay.
Let me try to pull it up.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know where.
Mr. DeLuca, please continue, and we'll work on
it. I guess there were two board members who wanted to know exactly what pieces of the ordinary would be demoed in the project, and there would not be any. There's if you scroll down again. Perfect. You can keep going. Great. Again, the architectural hyphens represented in the top right corner of the plans. Again, that extends out approximately 6 feet. The existing ordinary completely masks any appearance from Georgetown Pike of the addition. It's all tucked behind the porch, as well as the kitchen of the property, as well as the previously approved 3-car carriage house, the garage system. So there's not an visual impact by any points of the ordinary or Georgetown Pike. If we scroll down a little further, Laura, thank you. I'm sorry. We can see the profiles. And if you stop right there, right on the bottom of the addition of the living room, you would see the dotted line of the existing porch that is proper about 1.5 feet above proud of the addition roof, as well as if you looked at the extension of the architectural hyphen, it's still below the secondary A-frame of the ordinary. If we scroll down a little further, the board asked for additional attachments of actual structural members and how I would go about tying back into the house. Now, these have not been approved by our structural PE, but this is what we would feel would be a means and methods of accomplishing what we wanted to do. As you can see, the addition would begin where the existing porch is. So you already have a roof over that. The only thing we would be doing is basically closing that in, extending the architectural hyphen above, and then that becomes solid roof. We would continue that same cadence of our roof system that would be a simple shed roof that ran directly behind the ordinary. The one thing that we would be willing to do is we could change roof surfaces, but we just felt that we've already done so. We've got black standing seam metal throughout the ordinary on the main house, and then we have architectural shingles on the secondary or the architectural hyphen and the addition roof, which was previously approved. I would also reduce the size of the living room fireplace, which would be in the same stone and an indigenous Virginia stone as well. There are a couple questions in regards to materials that we would use. We would use clapboard throughout the entire addition. If the architectural review board asked us to paint an off-white color of the new addition, we would be willing to do that. Currently, the Langley Ordinary is painted Benjamin Moore Dove white, but we would change that if you felt that it was important to have a visual again of what would be the third addition to the Langley Ordinary. If you scroll down one more time, again, very low profile. If you go, you'll see the existing chimney that was previously approved. That is showing about 2.5 feet higher than it's supposed to. We were just following code from Life Safety in regards to being 2 feet above any roof line. So he exaggerated that, but it is only approximately 2 feet below what's being shown. And if we scroll down a little further, we were asked for specific connection details. And this basically shows the existing garage system. And then if you went down further, we would show the actual addition points on where we would tie back into the house. And this actually shows us the connection above, as well as the roof system and the architectural hyphen in between. I'm not sure if the board has the last two presentations that we did that have more photograph depictions. Laura, I know you had a question of some pictures of that little dormer that would be affected. I sent those out. I'm not sure if we could share those with the board.
This is Nicole. Are those the ones you sent Laura today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, give me 1 sec.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Nicole. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at PowerPoint either, guys, so bear with me.
While Nicole's loading that up, I think I want to clarify part of the question that you may have gotten passed on, Mr. DeLuca, was not just how much of this would be visible from other perspectives, but how much of the ordinary itself, was there going to be more historic material from the original ordinary having to be removed to add on to make any changes here too, please?
Yes. No, there would not. Basically, this is the only piece that's affected. But this shed dormer on the back of the ordinary is a 1970 shed dormer that was put up. It's two windows that basically it's a kind of like a cathedral ceiling in the interior kitchen. Those are replaced windows. Those are Pella architectural line, which are true divided. And those windows would be repurposed in the actual addition to create light in the extension of my son's bedroom. So there's, and on the back side of the house, again, this porch is the architectural hyphen below. So you really don't have anything old that's being touched at all.
Except for that portion that's right in front of me, correct? That's the portion that you were referring to, correct?
The 1970 shed dormer, yes, sir. The
Okay.
two.
Okay. That is. I was part of the person who asked that question. I think you just clarified it right there at that.
Yes, sir. And then if you look also, Mr. Daniels, on that secondary A-frame of the ordinary that runs parallel to Georgetown Pike, that basically masks everything. And as the ordinary naturally progresses and steps down to the rear, it completely camouflages any addition on the backside from left, right, and forward of the actual addition. Because you do have a barrel porch that goes around 240 degrees of the ordinary, and that porch as well, basically you can't see anything. I was trying to think of any other things. I've added light fixtures. I just wanted to make the light fixtures very simple and primitive. They're black colonial side mounts. Again, I would be up for asking the board any suggestions in regards to paint colors, roof materials that would be more amenable for your guys' approval. I didn't know if there's any questions that I could answer for anyone.
I have a question for Laura. Are there any other materials that were not included in the package that I downloaded on Monday that I should have now?
I don't think so. That should be it. I don't think there were any more details on materials other than what was in the drawings.
Correct.
Plus these 3 photographs, right?
Yes, sir. Then you have about 20 photographs and a couple plans that happened on the first, I believe we did, Laura, 2 meetings before the pandemic hit. And then we deferred 1 meeting.
I think so. I think part of the issue too is that I don't have some of them electronically. I have the one from March, but I don't have the one before that electronically. So what I provided you is what we had, I think, from the March submission.
Okay. And that's what the folks have now in front of them?
They have that and then the most recent updated submission. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I could send, if you guys want to go way back before we really got into the details, just the basics of
I think I have those, like the hand drawn ones. I have those. I just I didn't include them with the submission because I felt we had more updated drawings, so I didn't want to.
Yes, ma'am. And then there was, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody wanted to see a photo of the double Dutch doors. I don't know if you provided to them. That was from August 13th.
Yeah,
that was in one of the submissions that we have.
Yes, sir. Correct.
They're painted red. Yes, I remember those.
I just remember that one of the newer members wasn't familiar with that approval and wanted to see what those doors look like. So I just wanted to make sure you guys had those.
Okay.
Those are being used on the addition.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. DeLuca, for bringing us up to date on the proposal. At this point, I will ask, is there any member of the public who would like to address the ARB in this particular action item?
Mr. Burns, this is Laura. I don't see anyone.
I don't see any comments either. So we'll move on, and I will poll the members of the board. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr. DeLuca for his presentation and for sending out the materials and photos in advance. I really, since I am not an architect, I would really like to defer any comments or questions that, to the architects on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Mr. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I know we've tossed this one about quite a few times. I don't, in general, have issue with the proposed addition on the back here. I agree that it's not really going to be visible. You've kind of addressed my concerns about the changes that were going to happen to the ordinary. It's the original ordinary, because I think that was part of the questions I had. I think my biggest concern was actually with the materials submitted and whether or not they are sufficient enough for us to treat them as acceptable plans. I know Mr. Kalinsky gave you some comments on some of the things we would like to see, because in concept, I don't have an issue, but I don't know if we have something that we could approve from a planning architectural document perspective. And that's, again, me being an architectural historian. I feel unqualified to make a final opinion on that, but because I know our guidelines give us flexibility on what we need, I'm not sure if it's all there. So I'm going to defer to my fellow architects on the board, or our architects. So me deferring again to other members to give you some perspective on that.
Thank you. And my one point on that, Mr. Daniel, would be, and I know we did this with the original 3-car garage that you guys approved. It was approved in concept with the fact that I would have to hit the litmus test of approved structural plans as well as approved architecturals through the county. I don't know if that's an option, because we've done that a couple of times with you guys.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeLuca, for that answer. Ms. Huang, please.
Yes, I think my thinking is pretty much aligned with Mr. Daniel. I'm a little bit concerned of the document, and particularly for the roof condition. I almost afraid that once it continue move without more carefully on it, it's gonna get into some constructability issue, and the turnout may not as what we see right now. That is my concern.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Huang. Mr. Kalinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. DeLuca.
Yes.
As Mr. Daniel mentioned, I did have some questions as to how the drawings were presented. And I still feel that there are some areas in the drawings that are, say, they're not clear. They're somewhat obscure, particularly how the new extended hyphen connects into that secondary roof gable form on the back of the ordinary, one where you're going to be removing the small shed from. I would have preferred to have seen an elevation of that or a detail of that, but I haven't been able to kind of locate it on your drawings.
Can we click back up a couple? I'm sorry. So right there, if you went back down again. Thank you. So I went through the process per our last meeting of adding actual connection details. And as you can see on the bottom right corner, the existing shed dormer comes forward and the actual architectural hyphen extends. And we did a jotted line as well as a solid form where the actual header would be that would extend the architectural hyphen. So basically it takes any air gap in between the existing shed dormer on that right side, and the extension of the architectural hyphen. I don't know if, now that I've pointed it out, is that something that would be sufficient to you? And then if you look onto the top left, that's your plan view of A108, which is the plan view of the three-dimensional structural view on the bottom right corner.
So, Mr. DeLuca, are you proposing that you're keeping the wall of the shed dormer and just extending it into the newly extended hyphen?
Yes, sir. With a flash.
Okay. And the roof of the existing shed dormer, what's going to change on there?
Just the extension, sir.
So the roof is going to be sloping down into the sidewall of the new extended hyphen?
That roof will have a valley right where it meets the existing extension of the hyphen.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be the existing roof. It's going to be the existing shed dormer and basically elongated until it hits the extended hyphen. And then you're going to put a cricket or a valley on top of that to shed the water off?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because when I'm back looking at page 2, and if you could go back up to page 2, in your three-dimensional plan in the bottom left-hand corner, it
Oh, he did. Yes, sir. He blocked it out. Sorry about that.
Okay, and that's the only image I could see that gave me any idea of what you were doing.
Sorry about that.
Everything else seems to cut off before that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I mean that explains it. I mean that's an area of concern. I do think from a submission standpoint that there are, let's say, missing notes and tags and everything. If I were the builder trying to build this, I don't think I have enough information called out. Visually there's, the three-dimensional shows me what it's supposed to look like, but I don't have enough information called out to know exactly which door, which window, what type. So I'm presuming there's going to be a further level of development of this as a permit set.
Absolutely. And all I wanted to do, we've expended an enormous amount of money on our house and our projects. I just did not want to go down a path with finalizing structural and finalizing my architectural submissions without an approval in concept. And in the past, we've always gotten our approvals, and then the set was married. The actual permit set was married with what was approved in concepts with everyone. And that's happened with the first edition, which was the garage system, and then the extension of the architectural hyphen. Both of those were both approved in concept. And then my actual stamped plans were brought in. And as long as they married up to the conception of what was approved by the board, they were then submitted to the county for approval.
Okay. So Mrs. Huang's comment about, what is shown and how it actually gets built, I think, at least at the level of detail that's on these drawings, that's a concern that I would share as an architect too. Laura, who does the kind of reconciling of the concept to the actual construction documents? Is that somebody in your office or?
That's me, me and Nicole.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know if there was, an independent, somebody in code enforcement and who may not be as aware of all the issues and, what was approved and don't approve.
So usually when they submit the building permit, that gets pinged to me for a historic review. And then I would take whatever the ARB approval was and match it up to what the permit documents are to make sure it's in conformance with what was approved. If there's minor things, it's a judgment call. But if it's major things, then that would be a bigger issue.
Okay. And let me say my ability to judge here is a little bit impaired in the fact that what we're seeing is the addition to the addition, and I realize the house is rather large, but we're not seeing the addition in context to the entire structure, and that's giving me a little pause as I look through here.
Have you looked at the original photos that I submitted with all the views from the main structures?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So and Mr. DeLuca, I appreciate it's a large house, and that has given me some assurance as we move forward here. But I do think that there's a point where the number of additions and the extensions will start to overwhelm the historic fabric of a building, and I think we might be getting close to that tipping point with this particular.
I completely agree, and I'm like, I would never say I'm done, but I feel in my heart that I am done. Like I just, it's about us expanding a family and living in an 1842 house and trying to stay put and have some modern conveniences, all tucked behind the house. And I also didn't know, Nicole, is there possible the other two photos that I sent? Because that does show, the main roof line and how we're kind of tucked away. There you go. Again, the entire addition sits behind the two primary A-frames of the ordinary. And the size and the massing is completely unaffected from the visuals of the street and the public, as well as the neighboring properties. And I don't mean this mean in any way, but my kids go to Country Day, and I look down the hill on what got approved on Turkey Run, and that little tiny remnant of the original building and the Floridian monstrosity that they're building next to it. And, my little house is nothing even close to something like that.
Understood your view. Nonetheless, our charge is to protect the historic resources in the county.
Yes, sir.
Whether there was a successful before or not. So I do appreciate that you have kept the scale of this in the low and or smaller relative to the house, and the roof's low. But I will quote you when you come back next time.
Yes, okay? Sir. I promise you. And if you need me to do a sworn document, I'll do that as well.
That's okay. All right. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Klinsky. Ms. Murray.
I have to say that I am somewhat mollified to know that we're only going for conceptual approval, because that was not clear from the minutes. I'm from the agenda. So wherever that fell through the cracks, that should have been made clear to the board, because what you provided to us is definitely, in terms of building detail, not sufficient to approve. Frankly, I'm still baffled as to what you're going to do, but I will let the design professionals make up their minds.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Orr, please.
I think everyone's comments have been very kind. I am not feeling as kindly. I think in the hands of a professional, they could work this roof line to be much more in keeping with the historic aspects of the house, and still give you some windows that you want upstairs, and be in better, I don't know, I don't see crickets around these big chimneys. I don't like the flat roof. You don't have overhangs. I'm just, if you do have a professional, maybe a different one would be a better choice, but I think that in the hands of someone more capable, you could make this a little bit more attractive and would please me better. But I go with the committee and whatever they choose to do. I'm too new on this board to know exactly the extent of my, what I'm allowed to say and not say. But anyway, I'll quit there.
I think, Miss Orr, I was just looking at your notes on the last one. You wanted to see photos of the doors where the hyphen was, where the breezeway was.
I'm sorry, I don't remember, but
Okay.
I did see those, and the doors are beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure because that was your comment last time. Was just you wanted to see the doors.
Okay, I don't remember.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Mr. Plumpy.
Right, I'll keep it short and sweet. I agree with everybody what they said. Mr. DeLuca, you should get a tiny house.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, I agree with everybody else. And I would probably echo some of Kay's comments and listen to that. And, I know it can be frustrating, Mr. DeLuca, with what our charge is sometimes, but I think somebody said earlier, we're not trying to give people a hard time. We're just, trying to make sure we're preserving the historic nature and give you helpful comments in an effort to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. McReynolds, please.
I don't have any additional comments.
Okay, I guess it's my turn then. I do have some comments. One is if Laura, can you, or Nicole, can you put up the series of 12 photographs that Mr. DeLuca was kind enough to share with us? I'll start my comments with number 4 of 12. Which I turned up right side up on mine.
Yeah, I'll work on rotating.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of hard because it was saved in a format that makes it difficult to rotate. There you go. You're pretty quick. Okay, there's that. So we're starting. Here's our basis. This is where we're starting from. We've got a long roof line it's visible, albeit not prominently visible, from Georgetown Pike. If you go forward 2 slides to number 6, excuse me, 7. And you have to do your magic again. Okay. There you go. Okay. That's the same porch now. It's going to be almost doubled in length. And so you're going to have an edge that's it's probably going to run 100 feet or so. And it'll go almost out to that pine tree. It'll go beyond the 2 urns on the steps that flank the existing patio. And so that's a long architectural feature. You really can't say that that's not a prominent thing. I'd also note that this is an open porch here, and that roof line continues on an open porch. And if you look, even though there's the screens and doors and such, you can see through it. And once this is constructed, you won't see through it. And so what you're going to have is a large continuation of this mass extending further away from the main part of the house. So that's a concern. I mean, stepping it back a little bit might help, but it becomes a very prominent long edge. And I think when you're looking at nature, if you have a long, straight edge, your eye tends to be drawn to it. Now, my concern there is that our eyes will be drawn to it. Then, is it? No, I guess is it? Okay, go up to number 5. Okay, and here you've got the steps from the existing patio that step down into the yard. And from looking at your plan, it appears as though that the double doors in that will open out. Well, immediately there's a step immediately right outside that door threshold. Is that correct?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what- okay, so there's no like little landing or something. You go out that door and boom, you're down 1, 2, 3 steps.
There's 3 steps, sir, then a landing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that I just wanted to make sure I understood because those didn't show in your drawings, but I kind of surmised that's what it might be. So I had a question about that.
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to make sure you see, though, on the drawings that the addition steps back. I do, in fact, stepped it back from that a visual line from the porch.
Right, but not until further down the facade.
I see. Yes, sir. So make that happen early.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also, if you go back, Nicole, if you can jump back to slide 1 of the drawings. Okay, and there, thank you, Nicole. If you look in the first floor plan down in the lower right of that drawing, you can see the step back that Mr. DeLuca just referenced. You know, that is a help. Maybe stepping back along the full length of that might help differentiate and break that long plane that would extend from the existing porch.
Yes, sir.
And then I also noticed that the garage appears to be bigger than what I recall that we approved. And then if you look at the drawing, there are the 3 double doors that are the garage doors.
Yes,
And in the original, to the right edge, it was very narrow, and Mr. Kalinsky suggested that you make that symmetrical with the far left door. But actually, it's grown. It's not just symmetrical, it's actually longer. Did this garage actually get longer from our approval to construction?
No, sir. Part of the second approval was you had a little shed that was at the end of the garage. So you had a little bump out.
Right.
And it was an art studio. Part of that approval was that roof was raised and became a closet to the owner bedroom on that second level. That was the second last approval you did.
Okay, but what I'm talking about is the floor plan of the garage. It is no longer symmetrical about the 3 openings. It seems to have been extended off to the right.
Which slide are you on, sir?
I'm on drawing 1 of 6.
1 of 6.
And I'm looking at the drawing in the lower right corner.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
You should see it on your screen. Nicole.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually going through my.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that was just a misrepresentation in these 3Ds. It's very difficult for him to scale these 3Ds. So I think what you're seeing there is greater than what is actually here.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that what got constructed was what was approved. But that goes back to the point that several people made, which is that these drawings aren't adequate for a formal approval of the overall project. I would think that we would need to perhaps only approve these in concept. So now, if Laura, could you go to photograph LF2 of the ones that Mr. DeLuca shared tonight? Sorry, and Nicole. There you go, that one. Okay. So this is a little dormer that's going to be taken off, and it's going to be replaced by an extension of the shed roof. Now, when that shed roof, which slopes down and to the right in this photograph,
yes, sir,
intersects with the ridge of that dormer,
yes,
how is that detailed?
Because
from your drawings, it appears as though part of it will be up underneath the edge, will be taller than that cross gable, and at the other end, where it ends, it will be below the ridge of that cross gable. So how is that detailed? This is related to Mr. Kalinski's question. I think it's kind of similar. I don't understand the geometry of how that will work, and the structural drawings that you showed don't extend over this roof area. They just stop just short of where the roofing materials end in this photograph.
We can add that. That's not a problem.
Okay, so that's a detail that it gets back to I think it was Ms. Huang's comment about the buildability of the set of drawings that you're sharing with us tonight.
Got it.
So those are my comments. Now, having heard all these comments, is there someone on the board who would like to make a motion on this action item?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to raise a question, I
Yes,
guess,
sir.
as opposed to, so we've been talking about concept versus final drawings, and I recognize Mr. DeLuca's comments that in the past we have approved things that have then gone back and been married up to make sure that that approval matches, the plans match. I think there's a lot of hesitance here just because obviously, you know, each stone we add on to it adds more complexity to these additions. And we've talked that to the nth degree here, but I think I would only be comfortable right now personally feeling like if we approved it as in concept design with the condition that the final drawings return to us, and that could even be possible that they return with one of our architects reviewing it to see if it, you know, needs to come before a full approval or could be listed as a consent item at that point. But I get the understanding that Mr. DeLuca is looking for something to help him move forward with more design work. But that's where I'm sitting. I wanted to just hear perhaps the other board members' thoughts or reactions on that concept. And obviously Mr. DeLuca's too, as the applicant here, for what he's anticipating from us.
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Daniels. That's all. I just don't want to spend $10,000 to go dance with you guys next month, and that'll be the 5th time I've presented this project.
Am I correct? You're asking us to either vote it up or down, and not ask for conceptual approval? Is that, Mr. DeLuca, is that your intent?
No, sir. I'm just asking for conceptual approval so I don't waste money going down a rabbit hole every month on another. I mean, I've got a comment today about something that wasn't even in the comments last time we presented this, and I just want to make sure what I'm addressing, and I appreciate it, Chairman Burns, because those little details are so important, because I don't want to do this again next month and not have that detail where I show the roof extended to the end. So those are the things that I want to make sure, but you know, more importantly, I just didn't want to waste more architectural money on something that, you know, was going to be another hoop next month.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Now, having heard Mr. Daniels' comment and Mr. DeLuca's response, is anyone willing to make a motion on this particular action item?
Mr. Burns, I think I might be able to satisfy that requirement.
Okay, Mr. Daniel.
I will try. I will endeavor. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB recommend approval of the conceptual design submitted for ARB 20 LFK01, located at 1101 Chainbridge Road, McLean, tax map number 0223010063A, located in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District. Again, for the proposed addition to the Langley Ordinary as submitted in conceptual design and presented at the November 12, 2020 ARB meeting, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant return with final designs, and that may need to be construction design drawings for ARB approval, whether through consultation with an ARB staff member as a consent item or as a full review item. Upon review of these materials, the proposed is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance -200 historic overlay district.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, was that Mr. Zellman?
Reynolds.
Ms. Reynolds, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McReynolds. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question.
No, wait a minute. I was
Sorry,
waiting.
Elise appears to have her hand up.
Okay, sorry, I don't have an image of her. Elise, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't on your screen. Is it implied in Mr. Daniel's motion that we will get full specifications on the materials and cut sheets on the windows and doors? Or does that need to be part of the motion?
I think it was implied, Ms. Murray, but I think it would be helpful to add it as a caveat to my condition, and would gladly accept it that that submission contain the appropriate submittals and specifications necessary. And I again would look to Mr. McReynolds as if that is acceptable to you, sir, as the seconder.
Yes, that'd be fine with me.
And then I'm sorry, Mr. Daniels, just to clarify, should I resubmit if I'm just simply reusing the windows you've already approved for the garage?
Yes, and I would say because we're in the situation of digital submissions right now, it would be the cut sheets and that information as appropriate is what we'd be looking for.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to say that if it indicates that you're reusing something somewhere else, that would be very helpful to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. We look forward to seeing you perhaps next month.
Thank you, sir. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
That concludes the action items on tonight's agenda. Does anyone need a break? Or should we just move on? I'm seeing nods here. Okay. So it's now 9:47, so let's come back at 9:52, 5 minutes.
And what's left to be done?
What's left to be done? We have board and staff items. We need to review and take action on approval of last month's minutes. Have a treasurer's report. We have a report from the nominations committee on a slate for officers for 2021. There's a reminder from Laura that we need to provide comments on the HOV design guidelines. It's a contract we have with an outfit called Traceries to update our guidelines, which were last updated in 1992. And then there's various discussion and update items, such as the Soapstone Connector in Reston, the Holland Hills proposed historic overlay district, the Homefront Acres proposed historic overlay district, an update on the Wellington River Farm update, and a big proposal to make that a historic overlay district, and then other rezoning and such, and then very briefly correspondence and old business if there is any. I don't think there's anything more on the fourth page. Oh, new and other business, at which point we don't expect any. That answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to stay on much longer, so I think I'll just drop off now and catch you guys next month.
Okay. Could you hang around long enough to hear the slate for the officers? Because you'll be asked to vote on that next month.
Yeah, is that the next item? No,
we approved the minutes. We got a very brief treasurer's report, and then the report of the nominating committee.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your patience. This is an unusually long meeting. I almost said long-winded, but to a certain extent, it was long-winded. Of late, my experience has been that the online virtual meetings run more quickly. They somehow, the digital format seems to give us a little more discipline to move through things. Tonight is the first month that I remember the meeting going on a long time.
Yeah, this is a long time, and this is.
I certainly understand that and patience. Yeah. So, is anybody keeping an eye on the football game tonight? Okay, so you're all paying good or close attention to this. Thank you for that.
John.
Yes.
Michelle. One thing I noticed, I mean, that I agree with you, all these virtual meetings have been usually about 2 hours.
Right.
But the first, the workhouse discussion of the 3 items was over 2 hours alone.
Yeah.
So, you know, they really didn't need to be going through a 35 slide presentation for an approval when they had presented probably most of that in earlier submissions, and maybe we need to re-emphasize that people just talk about the things they changed in response to earlier workshop discussion rather than going through the entire presentation all over again.
That's a very good point.
And I apologize for being late. I signed on to the computer and I tried to, Microsoft was trying to be very helpful and telling me, oh, I need to load a certain kind of WebEx program onto my browser. And I was not wanting to do that. And it just wouldn't let me. And then I tried a Mac, a different computer that I had used before, and it didn't work. So then we ran back upstairs and tried it again with the WebEx on a Microsoft computer.
Glad to have you here, though, Michelle.
Yes. Okay.
I guess I need to practice. I need to have Nicole set up a separate time during the workday, and I'll try it again to see if I can perfect signing on.
Right.
Well, anytime, you know, we were all having issues. So I don't know if it was you or WebEx tonight.
Okay, I've got 52, so yeah, let's come back into section. Okay. First item is review and action on approval of previous month's minutes and authorization of payment to our recording secretary. Anybody have any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes and pay their recording secretary, Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the ARB approve the October 2020 minutes and pay the recording secretary accordingly.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. That was Mr. Klinsky? Yes, okay. Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Okay, all opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Laura, treasurer's report?
I'm going to say a second or two ago, her screen showed that she was having connection issues. She may have been knocked off already and trying to get back on. So.
Okay, well, let's come back to that. And just moving along, let's go on. Do we have a report from the nominating committee?
Yes, the esteemed nominating committee with Mr. Plumpy and myself, at least his half is esteemed. We've come up with the following nominations for the slate of chairman, Mr. Daniels, for the slate of vice chair, Mr. Zellman, And for the treasurer emeritus, Miss Aubrey. We welcome anybody else who would like to throw their hat into the ring. But that is our nominating slate at this point.
Oh, that's thank you. That's a report
I missed
from
it. I missed it. Can you do it again?
what?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
That's right. So Chairman, we've nominated Mr. Daniel, I'm sorry. For Vice Chairman, Mr. Zellman, and for Treasurer, Ms. Aubrey.
Great. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I missed the excitement.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. McReynolds, if you need to leave, please go with our thanks, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
All right, I'll see you next month. Bye.
Okay. Laura, we kind of jumped over when you were having connection issues. Could you give a brief treasurer's report, please?
Sure thing. The treasurer's report for November 1st was $21,803, and that was just the payment to the recording secretary. Everything else is in line.
Okay, cool. And we'll jump back to administrative. You're going to chide us, right, on giving you comments on the design guidelines rewrite?
Well, just because I'm waiting for your comments to give them back to the consultant, and also we're trying to move forward on a number of historic overlay districts, and so we need that information before we can finalize those documents.
Laura, I have a question about that, because I went back through my files. Wasn't there an updated document they gave us that had some changes based on the first presentation, or is it the same one that we got the one time? Because I was not sure if there was a new thing that I was supposed to comment on, and I felt like I couldn't find it.
I'll send it to you again. It was the same document from before. Okay. It was just, I'm trying to remember. I think they came in September and maybe they gave us some, I don't know. We were waiting. They came back and I'll double check, but I think it's the same document. I don't think it was updated.
When is our drop dead? You're literally just going to assume we're absolutely happy with it.
You have, where's my calendar? Because like I said, now we're trying to inform other projects on whether or not to use the language that we're using for different things. So I would say you have 1 week from tonight. Okay. So November 19th. Actually, I'll give you to the 20th. November 20th. You have till Friday, November 20th.
Fair is fair. Now that I have a deadline, I work a lot better as a bureaucrat with deadlines.
Okay. All right, it's just because we're now going to, I don't think I gave you a deadline. I don't think I gave everyone a deadline last time. And now we're getting to the point where we're backing up into some other Holland Hills and Homesworn Acres doing their design guidelines and other things informing those projects. So we need to have an answer and get that project, at least, get the overall design guidelines set up so that we can inform the overall zoning district set up so that we can inform the new stuff.
Okay, and when you send that out to us again, the updated one, please include a reminder that November 20th is the drop dead deadline for comments. Thank you. Okay, Soapstone Connector, Association Drive 4F comments. We are a consulting party, and we got ourselves a little hot water, I think, last time we made comments because we didn't clear them through some higher level authorities in the county. I'm not sure exactly who it was we're supposed to get approval from. But anyway, they have come out. I don't know if everybody's read them or not, but their preferred alternative is the originally proposed alignment, which will align directly with Soapstone on the opposite side of Sunrise, and take out the secondary school principals building and cut off the access road to the buildings on the west side of the association circle. So that's their new proposed alternative. We get to respond to that. So I don't know.
John, this is good. So this is just I was confused by this submission because this is a 4F submission, and is it right. Also trying to be the 106 submission? Because it didn't come across to me as that, and maybe I don't know, Laura or Nicole, which one to use on the county side of this, but it came across to me as a 4F submission.
I believe that is correct. It is a 4F submission. I perhaps mischaracterized it in my description of it.
Because I guess from my perspective, whenever they want to talk about the Section 106 aspects of it, I see that they're still picking the one that will have an adverse effect on the properties. And in my mind, that's something the agencies can choose to do. But I want to talk about resolving that adverse effect. And if they can't avoid it, and it seems to be only feasible to go through that building, they're destroying the building and they're affecting the overall collection of properties. So to my mind, that means we need to mitigate. And I can think of many types of documentation or identification efforts that might benefit Reston as mitigation items. But I don't think this is the appropriate window through 4F, but I'm not an expert in 4F.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm getting lots of feedback to myself.
Well, this is Michelle, and while I agree with Mr. Daniels, there's another statement. There's a statement in the document on page 12 that I think is vitally important, and you could really miss it. But what they say is it's a section on clauses affecting ownership, and they mention that all of the owners of property in the Association Drive group have agreed to rezoning and redevelopment of the site. So it really, in a way, now they just mentioned it almost in passing, but in a way, they're basically saying, well, we don't really have to care about doing anything to protect this one property because it's all going to be torn down anyway.
Yes, that's I think exactly the point. I've had given this a lot of thought, and in the end, this is what I'm thinking might play out is the Section 106 requirement to mitigate adverse effect will garner us documentation of these programs that the county has already doomed to oblivion by the 2013 changes to the comp plan in that area of Reston. So I think that, it's pretty much we've already lost these buildings. It's just a question of how can we best preserve what they represented to Reston, their character and such like that. And that's, I think mitigative documentation is the only thing we're eventually going to get. This is a train that's kind of left the station. If you remember when they first came and made their proposal of their 1 story of concrete and 4 stories of wooden apartments, the proposal, and I said, if you're going to tear these buildings down, put up something that is better. I think he took offense at that comment, but I meant it. That, you're taking out design that represents part of the best of what makes Reston a special place. And you're going to replace it with not exciting stuff. And that's, if you're going to lose something, make sure the county gets something out of it. And make sure that we recognize that Reston was a special place. And and they talk about Reston, there's very little discussion about the industrial area, which is what this was called, the Dulles Toll Road corridor. And it's not just here, but it's across the road at, Isaac Newton Plaza, with the original Gulf Reston building there, and the original Reston Association building there. So that these things are all, to a certain extent, the county's already written off in the comp plan. But the best we can do is hope to keep some record of their existence.
Well, John, I think you're right about that, because while this project isn't the ones that rezoned it, the county did, but I think we've been doing the bare minimum documentation ask. I think we need to seek a little bit more. This is an entire complex, so I think if we're going, it's affecting the whole, not just a single item. So I think we need to ask for some comprehensive documentation, perhaps even a little bit, throw in some laser scanning, if you ask me there, and something. I actually think there should be some type of interpretive. Reston is big on walking trails and pathways and corridors, if we can't maintain the space that's going to be there, can we at least leave some kind of record that it was there? It just, because I question whether we could push for them to do outside mitigation to do identification of other industrial properties in Reston. They'll probably balk at that because most folks don't want to stretch their minds that far. But I just, I don't want to seek the same standard package that we get anytime. I wish we could have been in the same position with API, because I think we could have twisted for a lot more, asked for a lot more API had it been a federal project taking it down, which is a property that I would have loved to have gotten even more of a record of. Not that I don't like these, it just, but I don't know if this is the avenue in which we should comment about it, because it doesn't feel appropriate, because I think I would be waiting for a 106 document to ask for our feedback on that side of things.
Right.
Yeah, this is Nicole real quick. I was going to say in the document towards the end, they have a chart that shows the different alternatives. And they do say in the first box, they're saying that the ability to mitigate. So they're talking about an MOA will, after this 4F process concludes, they will go into, if that's what they choose, which they're recommending, they'll go into the MOA process.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason I pushed so hard to get this determined eligible as a historic district, is that it's not just the immediate impact, but it's the impact of the overall district. And I think that Chris's recommendation of doing comprehensive documentation of this is essentially it's a cultural landscape. It's to document not just individual buildings, but their environment and setting. That would include landscape features as well. That's my hope.
That's my hope too, John, because I think of all the things that can be given to the Reston History Society and other groups that catalog this history, that I would want to make something that would be valuable. That this is another piece of the original of early Reston that's going away and is being consumed by townhomes, which, while also a part of Reston, I think we're a little bit more diverse when they were designed originally. I may be biased in saying that as I'm sitting in the basement of one.
Okay, enough said on that.
John, just
want to move on to HOD? Oh, Laura, go ahead.
Just before we go on that, I'm looking for someone to write the memo for us from staff for the ARB, so we don't have to pull comments together from what was said tonight. So, sounds like Chris or John really want to write it, but we can work on something, but our staff is very limited right now on what we can do. Nicole's working on the staff response to this, but we probably can't do the ARB as well.
How diverse of a thing do you need, Laura? Because in my mind, this is a letter of the ARB appreciates this report that was provided with us, but at this time we have no comments on the 4F report. However, we look forward to a detailed and lengthy discussion on the proposed mitigative approaches to resolve the adverse effects of the individual building, the district, and the cultural landscape as a whole. And here are our suggestions for consideration.
It's up to you. I mean, we don't.
Okay, I'll write it.
I was gonna say, if you think that, then do you want to comment at all? Probably yes. To note that you're involved with the process, even it's just that we appreciate the review and we look forward to more. But I mean, it's up to you on how deep you want to go, because then you're really setting yourself up for the next set of
Well, I think that. I mean, unless there's a member of the board who thinks that that's not a reasonable approach, I think we could say that in two paragraphs or so. John, I'd rather you sign it as chairman, and I'm happy to draft it if that seems acceptable.
Yeah, but why don't you and I work on that? I'll be happy to, we have to get it out before my lame duck status evaporates. And
the due date is November 27th, but of course that's the day after Thanksgiving. So I would say you probably want it in by the 25th, which is that Wednesday before.
And this is Nicole. I would also, if you guys have any comments about why they chose that route versus the other ones that they, discussed, I would, if there is a reason that you don't agree with it, or the de minimis impact or anything like that, that would be important.
Right. Actually, I do agree with them. because I think we would be hated by future Restonians if we got our way and imposed a very awkward intersection that involves a dog leg and such. Every time they go through it, they'd curse the ARB.
Yes, totally. But I was just saying, yeah, if that was, if there was any issues, or if you agree with them, that's probably important too.
Yeah, yeah.
John, they probably already don't like us, but you know, it's okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know. No, we threw a monkey wrench into the works with them.
VDOT created that problem on its own.
They did.
With Fairfax County DOT. We did nothing wrong. We did our mandated duty to bring up that issue. If they had come to us earlier, it would not have been a problem. I merely want that on the record for if anyone wants to read it.
Okay, moving right along. Since we're now past 10 o'clock, 2 historic overlay district nominees coming up. Holland Hills goes first.
Don't really have an update other than we're wrapping up our work group meetings. We have 2 more to go on November 16th and December 7th. And then we're talking about the draft design guidelines at Monday's meeting. And I'm hoping to do a larger community meeting in January or February.
Okay, and Chris, I want to thank you for trying to calm them down or encourage them that we're not ogres.
I actually have to say I was overjoyed to be there, and I actually thought it went really well. And I could understand some of the concerns that the members of the task force had, and was very happy to be that face of the ARB that they hadn't met before, and go, hey, we're not such bad folks.
Cool. Okay, because they're going to see more of you. Okay, about homes around acres.
There we go. And sorry, I can't turn my video on. Every time I turn it on, it kicks me out. So, yeah, no, I tried to do it again and it did it. So yeah, Homes Run Acres, same thing. We have our next meeting on Wednesday, and we're going to continue looking at structures for contributing and non-contributing. And we are also going to start talking about what could be potential adverse effects if there was a Homes Run Acres neighborhood, which is one of the things that the zoning ordinance requires us to do. So I think that'll be a good conversation to have. Again, I think the group is really good. They're very into it, and they're thoughtful, and you know, we're having really good discussions. So I think it'll be a good continuation of that. And then we're going to talk about whether or not folks want to have a meeting in December, depending on timing and all that. I mean, maybe we will, since most people probably are not having crazy travel plans. So which would be great. But yeah, other than that, that is it for Homes and Acres.
Okay, thank you very much. Wellington River Farm update.
So on October 20th, the Board of Supervisors directed, I feel like I'm a broken record. I've said this so much, sorry. On October 20th, the board asked staff to do an analysis on whether or not a potential historic overlay district and or other preservation options would be feasible for the Wellington River Farm property. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's off of East Boulevard Drive, right near Collingwood, which was demolished last year. But I think it's a 48-acre property. It's owned by the American Horticultural Society, and it's originally on property that was owned by George Washington. So it's part of his original tract. So it's in the inventory of historic sites as Wellington or George Washington's River Farm. So it does have some potential for strong archaeological significance as well as cultural. And I think the house has been there since at least 1900. So I literally just sent that letter back before this meeting, and to be determined on whether or not how they're going to move forward. The 4 options that we presented were a historic overlay district, a potential conservation easement on the rest of the property, and a purchase of the property from a public or private entity, or a down zoning, which we're not really recommending, but it is an option. So down zoning, the property is zoned R2, which is 2 dwelling units per acre right now. And a down zoning would make it more like RE or RC, which is residential state. So you're talking about one property for every, I think it's 2 acres or something like that. So it would be much larger properties on the lot. So the overall goal is to kind of try to prevent the subdivision of the property, but to be determined how that's going to happen moving forward.
If I could interject on that, Mr. Burns, while we
Yes, please.
3 hours ago, the property came to market, showed up in my feed. The good thing is the description is appealing to a single user. It's very eloquently and very wordy, very verbose, but it's pushing it for somebody who really wants the premier state on the river. So it's not advertising to builders.
Well, and they also have some significant limitations on the easements that are on the property. There's a National Park Service easement along East Boulevard Drive on that side of the property, and it limits no subdivision within that, so that's limiting, but it also limits, they can only access it for a driveway. So they could potentially put in a cul-de-sac or some other thing like that. They'd have to go through the National Park Service to get that approved, so that's a much harder thing to do. So you're right. I'm sure they're marketing like that, because otherwise, once you start getting into all the easement language and stuff, you're up and going a long way.
There are numbers.
Numbers for what?
Oh, the price $32.9 million.
32.
32.9. It's adjacent to a $60 million property.
Also for sale.
Yes.
Laura, is your letter, can it be sent out to like some members of the History Commission who are?
I literally just, I know Sally Lyons emailed me. I literally just sent it right before this meeting, and I just finished and finalized it. So as soon as I wake up tomorrow and not think about that for about 12 hours, I will send it out again.
I had an inventory committee meeting that included Sally Lyons and Tammy Manarino.
Yes. Oh, Tammy called me twice.
I would ask you. And that was why I was so quick on the seconding tonight, because I had to read through that silly thing on Monday.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so quick. Let's get it over with.
Yeah. I know.
But thank you. They can wait.
I'm on it. It's coming. It's like 8 to 10. It's 8 to 10 pages. It's coming. It's just, like I said, I need a break. I need a break. But yes, it'll come to you, and I'll send it to the ARB as well for information.
Okay. Mr. Kalinsky and Ms. Aubrey and I attended Supervisor Stork's Mount Vernon meeting of all the BAC members in his district. That was it Monday, I guess? And Wellington came up. Is it Mararino from?
Mararino, yeah.
Yeah, she was there and talked about it and talked about working on it, maybe making a narrow historic overlay district of just that property. And Supervisor Stork, he said, yeah, there's some pressure on the county to purchase it, but he said they couldn't spend more than the appraisal amount, and they'd have to figure out how to do that. The appraisal amount something around 18 million. And the asking price is 32, so it's just like, it kind of takes it out of the realm of public purchase. But from that meeting, I wanted to share with you guys is 2 members of BAC representatives from the Mount Vernon district live in Liberty. I couldn't figure out what it was because I always have to recuse myself. But they were very highly complimentary of the ARB work on the work that's being done at the Lorton Penitentiary site.
The Lidl. I'm sure they're excited about the Lidl.
And Lidl, yeah, right. So they said, thank you guys. They were quite complimentary. So just want to share that with you all. Okay. Rezoning?
I don't have any updates on the rezoning because they're very kind of cut and dry basic. There's one that's coming in Madeira School up in McLean, up in Great Falls area. They're adding some new construction up there, and I'm the primary reviewer on that one, so I'll keep you posted about that. But if you're not familiar with Madeira School, it's from 1930. It's an all-girls school. It's pretty. We're going to ask them possibly to consider nominating themselves for the inventory of historic sites because we think they can make a case for it. But it's coming up. That's coming up soon. So I will keep you posted on that one. And I don't know. Nicole, did you have any other ones that came in for development review or others?
No, the only one that I'm working on right now is the one in Reston. They're proposing a new building. It's already been approved. It's called a It's the one next to the Reston Sheraton and the International.
Oh, the
building.
PRC, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a building that's already been approved, and so now they're coming back to talk about how they want to do it, and they're trying to make it smaller than what was approved, which isn't what the county really wants, I guess. So that's it will be a mixed use, mostly apartments, retail. So it'll be kind of kitty corner from the hotel, and then right across from the Reston International Center.
Thanks, Nicole. I
Getting
do
real
have
crowded
two,
over there.
Yeah.
that's true. I do have three other things, John, I wanted to bring up. I'll try to do them very quickly. So for the Confederate names inventory, and Elise, feel free to jump in if you'd like. They've are finishing up the report to be done in the next week or so, and Denise has been working very diligently on that. And so we will have a list in the next 2 weeks or so. And they're going to the board land use committee on December 8th if you wanted to tune in for that discussion. But this is all the things that in the county that the board charged the history commission with identifying that were related to Confederate names, items, people, etc. And the other kind of tandem to that was, if you might have seen in the news on the courthouse, the Mar Monument and the howitzers that were there were removed. The board approved the removal of those, and they were removed, I think, last Friday, I think. So they're no longer there. But anyway, that's just some updates on that. And then another kind of cool thing that's happening is Gum Springs. Denise is the lead on this one as well. But I think I told you before, Denise secured a VDHR cost share grant to help get the Pride of Fairfax nomination for the National Register written. And then we're starting to do a preliminary information form and survey of the Gum Springs area because it's long overdue for that area as significant. And then Supervisor Stork authorized an extra $60,000 for us to be able to help complete that study. So we're thankful for that, I know. And so we'll be moving forward, and Denise is the point of contact on that one. And we'll see what's to come, but it should be a pretty exciting thing for Gum Springs. It's not actually if you're familiar with the area, it's not the architectural that we're necessarily interested in. It's more the cultural and the oral history and the community that's there. So stay tuned for that. And then Elise, I do have the discussion of historic versus contributing wording. Did you want to jump into that, or I know it's kind of late, so I don't know. It's your preference on whether or not you want to.
I think that the memo is pretty self-explanatory. Okay. I think that it was clear that in 1992, Bruce Krivitsky wanted to drop the distinction. Because at the beginning of the guidelines, I went back and looked, I've been reading, I got to this backwards. And I went back to the beginning of the guidelines, and then like on the 4th page, he says, for the purposes of these guidelines, contributing and historic are counted, treated the same. So I think that in 92, Bruce and the rest of the Heritage Resources Branch wanted to drop contributing, and I guess you guys should just ponder that till the next time we have a formal discussion.
Okay.
And so there's useful things in the 92 guidelines that I had forgotten all about.
Hey, Laura, I have just one item, and it's real fast, just so everyone knows. On the 24th, John and I are going to be meeting with Chairman McKay. He was gracious enough to set up some time to talk to us about ARB issues. And just so you guys know what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about how great Nicole, Denise, and Laura have been in working with the COVID-19 situation and trying to get us through this. We're going to talk about the guidelines rewrite that's going on and all of that, how great that is. We're going to talk about the survey efforts within the county that are going on, Gum Springs, Reston, countywide. We're going to talk about the HODs. And then we're also going to talk about how happy we are to be a part of task force and how we would love for them to continue to encourage to involve us in other task force. But that's the agenda we're going to hit with them. I think Nicole, Denise, and Laura, we're going to bring the whole entourage with us virtually when we do the Zoom meeting. But we're gonna try to hit him with everything we can to let him know how much we want to continue to help with One Fairfax and do all the great things. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. I hear no other calls for new business. So I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Come on, guys, wake up.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. A motion to adjourn is always in order. It does not need a second.
I was just waiting to see if anyone else would do it. I always do it all the time.
I
so-
couldn't find the mute button. Hey, can I make one last comment now that we're adjourned?
Okay.
$10,000 wasted on an architect comment.
Yeah.
Made me bite my tongue.
Oh, right.
First of all, it's an investment, not a waste. And second of all, no wonder why his drawing quality is such.
Let me stop recording.
Oh, I'm not afraid to say that publicly.
All right. Thank you, everybody.